bigger guns every time.
Hey!
Hey!
Welcome to the Hangout with Adam and Ryan. It is Thursday night. We're back on schedule.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining
normal
us.
time feels like we're home. This is our time. This is our time slot. This is what we got. Thursday evening. Drinking a couple whiskeys, drinking a couple LaCroix, and talking fun topics.
Lots of good topics. I also have a new light set. Can you spot the light? Yeah, look at that. I've made him orange.
It's like divide. It's like I know. It's dividing the screen in half for those listening to the podcast.
I have a light strip that's right here in front of us, and that's been sitting out there for a while. And I've had this other one. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put it up. And it looks cool. Give us a little bit of a vibe in the back and the orange.
Uplighting. You can't ever go wrong with uplighting.
You can't. So who do we got with us tonight?
Yeah.
Let us know in the chat if you're hanging out. It's always great to be with you. We have a fantastic show, like always. Interestingly enough, we've started a podcast as well. So we're using clips from this show, or one big clip from the show that is allowing us to post it on Spotify. And so if you are wanting to listen to this later, definitely check it out there if you're only going to be able to hang out a little bit for the beginning of today. But what's really cool about it is that I was listening to some of it recently, and it was it sounded like I almost didn't realize it was us, because what had happened was I had put my phone out and I was spot checking some of our audio stuff.
Sure.
And then of course I closed my phone, I go into work or something, and then I came back out. And then I turned on my car, and then it auto-connected, and it started from that. And I was like, who's this? And I was like listening. I was like, oh, that's us.
Oh, that's us.
It felt a little dirty, but, it was the thing.
I get that, I feel like I listen to myself quite a bit with recording video, right, and working with so I don't feel like I have a cringe to hearing myself that a lot of people do, but every time I do hear myself just randomly, I think like, that guy sounds like an idiot, and that's not a good initial reaction to have to yourself, but that's what it always is.
I think that we're really critical of ourselves, but I definitely feel that I have an awkward voice because I have to listen to some recordings sometimes to take some notes from work or some little thing from there, and it's always been a challenge. But,
yeah, I think that's everyone though, right?
Yeah, I think so.
All
right, so what do we got in store for you tonight? It's going to be a pretty interesting show. I'm just right here. I'm just going to say we have some notes. I've been spending some time going through a lot
for the main topic.
For the main topic today. Tonight. But we got also some news we wanted to talk about. Nice. So, part of recordings for work and refuse to listen. Yes, that is a challenge.
It's true.
It's it's also interesting too. This is episode 80. We've been 80 episodes on this, and not only has it been 80 episodes on Twitch, we had like around 80 episodes on YouTube. Did you know that?
Before
we
this, started on Switch,
we've got to the point we now have, I think, like tipped the scales on how many times we've done this.
Amazing.
So we've put this under a belt,
celebrate.
but I haven't watched a lot of those either.
No.
Like once we have the conversation, when we do the thing,
I'm there for the conveation.
We're right there. We're all part of it, and we thank you, Lepoj 93. Did I say that right? Lee Poj 93. Thank you for joining me and my buddy. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit. Interesting news. Half-Life 3 maybe is actually coming out. You're going to have to tell me about this one.
I know, right? We got a little bit of news on that.
We got some, of course, AI predictions that are not always right. We're going to talk about the enshittification of tech jobs.
I love the word enshittification.
It's a great new word.
Yep.
Interestingly, we have like 3 of them that go together. And there was some interesting things that happened with some research using AI on Reddit that wasn't really
cross some ethical lines perhaps, but maybe showed us something interesting about what AI thinks about.
Also, OpenAI, ChatGPT doing some glazing on some of those users out there, and finally some interesting.
Don't Google that.
Yeah. Wait. Oh gosh, I didn't even think about that. Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Shoot. All right. At least I'm innocent enough not to know.
See,
but wait, I did know when you said.
You knew when you heard it. In that
when you
context.
say Google that, you're like, what did I say? Then the last one is a little bit about some updates that made some folks go a little crazy, actually.
Yeah.
So some interesting news articles for sure.
A lot having to do with our previous podcast about alignment, which, coming up more in the news, coming up in these stories. So that'll be interesting to talk about.
The main topic of tonight, and I'm really excited because I feel like I've lived this topic for the last 2 weeks.
I know. Adam so this is Adam chose this topic based on a conversation, with his son over a walk. And like, I was a little bit skeptical about the topic, actually, even before we started. I thought it was going to be a little too shallow. And then as I was watching the videos and doing the research that Adam gave me, I was like, this is going to be a great topic, actually.
I thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for the idea of, hey, we picked the topic, we put the research, because it takes some time now.
Totally.
I think that in some prior podcasts or prior discussions that we've had on the show is we've had some growth. We've had some transition over time. Initially, we went, here's the news, here's some hot hits. And then we just went into like kind of some topics that we were thinking we had a vibe on, but we didn't really have a really good theme or topic to go.
Yeah.
And I'd say it's been the last
4 or 5?
4 or 5. Plus we've had some other ones that have gone deep dives.
That's true.
And we take an hour or a little bit more to talk about something that's interesting. And today, what we want to talk about is, where did all the places go? A deep dive into walkability, screens, and belonging. So we're going to talk about some of the physical spaces, some of the virtual spaces, and then how we really can kind of navigate through life and some of the things. It ties into our loneliness one, if you hadn't heard before.
Totally. Yeah. So we have an episode on like the epidemic of loneliness, basically, and loneliness with technology nowadays. And I feel like the more that I read about this topic and the more I was watching videos, I was like, this is a perfect dovetail to that.
Yeah, I think it's going to take us in a good space. But, of course, like we always do, we talk about questions for humans.
Questions for humans. We have 3 questions for humans at the beginning of every episode now. I'm reading them for the first time to Adam and I. We pulled them fresh out of a fresh deck. And we read them, and we'd love to hear your takes on it as well in the chat if you are there. What animal would you choose as a sidekick, and why?
Ooh, that's a great one.
I feel like that always depends. Like, is it a talking sidekick? Yeah. What animal would you choose as a sidekick, and why? Are we talking like, oh man, is it just a normal animal, like straight up animal as we know them, or is it anthropomorphized animal?
It's got to be an animal. It's a normal animal.
Normal animal is what we're
like
saying.
You can't be something that can talk to you and do like an absolute trainable animal as well.
Have you heard of Eagly? There's John Cena plays a character in an HBO series. I can't remember what the name of it is. He plays a superhero.
God, I feel like I do know this now.
Yeah, and he has a sidekick, Eagly, which is basically a giant bald eagle that is trained and does things. That would be pretty fun.
That's the Peacemaker.
Peacemaker.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
okay,
that's good. Okay, so I always thought, like, we have birds in our house.
Right.
We're a bird fan. We have parrots and things like that. Like, how badass would it be to have some kind of red-tailed hawk or something that you were just, you took out to the park and it was just, picking out bunnies when it could, and just I feel like that would be a pretty cool sidekick to have, and useful.
So we have some good ones in the chat. We got there's cats, there's pit bulls, there's snakes, there's sloths.
Mike is a whole sloth. You're like, you're not upstaging me, sloth.
It's like slowly crawling over you. No, this is a really good one, and I think first of all, right when you read it, I thought of Castle Crashers, and I thought of all those little things that float behind you for some random reason. No. So just to call that out, that's what
anytime you want to bring up Castle Crashers in modern day parlance, I love it.
I actually have to go with what the chat is saying, is that I definitely think a cat was my thing. There was a time where I would be able to put my cat on my shoulders and it would just like chill, and I'd be able to walk everywhere, and then it would like jump off and do things and then like come back up and hang on my shoulders.
That's pretty cool.
So
cat also feels very well, I'm gonna say sort of super villain like almost, you know, like it's kind of stealthy. Cat burglar, Catwoman, things like that. Okay, awesome.
That wasn't as exciting for me, but I mean, it's cool.
I love that. That feels like it goes good. Okay, next card. When's the last time you cried in a movie?
Oh, in a movie, you like cried?
God,
that was like 5 minutes ago.
Getting too little, too personal here. When was the last time you cried in a movie?
That's a great question. Can it be like a series or something, not an actual movie?
Yeah. It's like, I don't think it's saying the like a movie theater. I don't think that has to be.
Right, but I meant like there's series and things that I've watched and I've seen. Gosh, that's hard to say. I do tear up. Totally. I wouldn't say like full on bawl, but there are things that like tug at my heartstrings. Yeah. And I definitely kind of clam up on it.
I feel like now that I'm a parent, like parenty things will get me easier than other things. Like just stuff happening with children or stuff happening with that. I feel like I am kind of a baby when it comes to that. I feel like I tear up and do it like dumb things. You know, things that probably most human beings do not tear up on, but I will. But you're right. I don't feel like I'm ever like sobbing at a movie. The Wild Robot, Lepo J93 was like talking about. That was a good one. I feel like I might have teared up at The Wild Robot. That's a very good one. Plus, it's just an amazing movie and book to begin with.
I like that they said Adam and Dune. That would be a blasphemy to Dune because you cannot let your water drip out.
That's wasting water.
That's wasting it.
Your dry suit will have to just catch it.
It would pull it out, and I'd re-drink my tears. It would be a cycle. I was trying to chew on it, and honestly, it was it's kind of funny. It was the thing on Amazon that was the game one, where they had the different games that they read. There was like the robot ones. I can't even remember what it's called. Last episode, what was it? It was a series of different video game shorts.
Oh, right.
That was on Amazon, but there was the one for Zan. Which was this like robot that was basically getting beat up and like abused essentially, and like I don't know, it was like cried tears of joy. It was like, yeah, screw those mean people. Secret level. That's right.
Mike Azul got it in the chat.
So we had some good ones in there. Love to cry at movies. I have a reliable stack. That's heck yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, I feel like I haven't even seen that one.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 does have some jacked up moments with Rocket, right? As a tiny like baby.
Don't spoil because I haven't seen it.
I know, but you know who Rocket is, right? The raccoon. It's sort of his like origin story, which is always anyway. That was more like I feel like I have PTSD from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 more than I have more than I cried in it. Okay, final card. What's the strangest thing you know about your family history?
Oh man. There's a line where I can't bring that out on the podcast here.
It gets too strange in the post. What's the strangest thing you know about your family history? God, I feel like I know very little about my family history, to be honest. I don't know if Higley's in the chat. Maybe he or she could share some things. Strangest, I know my wife. She is apparently descendant of a Hopkinson who, you know how they say the person who designed the American flag. Who was that? Betsy Ross. Like Betsy Ross actually, in actuality, just sewed the flag, but like the Hopkinson on my wife's side of the thing was the one who like designed the actual like graphic design of the first American flag, and then Betsy Ross sewed the flag, right? So anyway, but he doesn't get any credit, right? Because that's not as fun. But Anyway, that's the only weird thing I think I've ever heard.
We gotta call something out that just came out in the chat. I
Okay.
mean, like, I'm a direct descendant of the first convicted murder in the American colonies. Murderer or murder?
No, like, yeah, the first murderer. I feel like that had to happen all the time in those old colonies. But being the first,
But the first, you made it to there. Watch out.
you made it all the way to America.
That's how we roll in this chat. This is the hangout. We hang out with murderers.
Descendants of murderers.
I would say I don't have like a really good story other than my name. My last name is Pocius, and it's an older Hungarian name, which means warrior of the plains. And we know that we had a really strong Hungarian past, so clearly there were some warriors out
Warriors
there
of the plains. That's pretty cool.
I like that.
Yeah.
Over the Po River or something like that. All right, let's jump into the news, Ryan. I'm excited. Ryan has some things to share with me tonight. This is a joke. So if you've been inside, okay, number one, this isn't a joke. Hopefully,
this isn't a joke. Hopefully.
Okay.
Finally,
real?
after decades, it's not an actual joke.
It sucks because what we're about to talk about might be ruining a popular meme. Might be ruining a popular thing to say online. Yep. And Ryan, you got to tell us a little bit about Half-Life 3.
Oh my god. So the internet meme is that Half-Life 2 came out. Half-Life 2 was amazing. Half-Life 1 was amazing. Half-Life 2 was amazing. It was created by this video game company named Valve. Valve then went on to create the Steam platform, which made it hundreds of millions of dollars, and they didn't really need to make video games anymore. And so they used to make really great ones. They made Portal. They made Half-Life. A few different ones. They were a great video game studio. And so they came out with 2, and then they came out with 2 like DLC packs for 2. So there was like an episode 1 and an episode 2 of 2, and it ended on this massive cliffhanger. And that was, does it say how long ago Half-Life 2 came out? I mean, we were in high school probably. So like 25 years ago at this point. It's not to date us, but like came out, everybody loved it. We were waiting for Half-Life 3, and then they never made it, because why would they? They were making bank off of this other platform that they did. And the joke is that Half-Life 3 was coming out soon, and there was always rumors that Half-Life 3 was coming out, and then it would get canceled because Valve has all this money, and so they didn't care about games getting canceled really. And so they would spend a bunch of money, and then it would just go away, and there would be all these rumors and all this stuff. Well, just to add to that rumor mill is that literally Half-Life 3, 25 years in the making, is playable, is going to be announced this summer.
Are we sure it's going to be announced?
No,
or is
no,
this
no.
it's speculation?
This is all speculation at
Okay,
this point.
all right.
We are only in speculation ground. But the most kind of like any of this that we have heard in, 5-10 years. And anyway, I just thought it was neat. It's like, those games are great. I really enjoyed playing them. That was like a formative part of my high school and post-high school years. And I just thought it was funny that we've been hearing for 20 years that Half-Life 3 is coming out. And literally we got news in the last week that it might be out before Christmas.
Winter of 2025. So it's interesting. Recently I had purchased this 4.5 hour video on first person shooters, and it talked about the history of it. Amazing series. It was an independent kind of thing that came together.
You talked about that on the show.
And they talked about why Half-Life was so important. And it was one of those times where you felt immersed in a first person shooter game. It wasn't just run and gun, but there was mystery, there was like intrigue, puzzles, and shooting, and you actually had a story. They said, yeah, you can do that with first person. And so I'm really excited about this. There was a VR game that came out, Half-Life, just recently. I don't know if you heard about that.
It was a couple of years ago, and Half-Life Alyx came out, and I bought a Quest 2, and you could because you had to have because Valve, if you remember, put out a VR headset. I'm not exactly sure what that one was called. I don't think they do it anymore. But like, they put it out, and they said, oh, you have to run it from this online client. And the only one that can do that is our headset. And then they figured out a way to make a Quest 2 run on that. So you could run Half-Life Alyx on a Quest 2 if you were like tethered to a laptop. But I never did it. So
well,
I haven't played.
Maybe Half-Life 3 will fill that niche. Yeah. Anybody out there, Half-Life fans, it would be interesting to know. I mean, because to us, it just seems like a piece of history. It's like a myth. Like it's almost too worked up. I mean, we're gonna play it and be like, that was it. We waited this long for this.
Oh, I know for sure.
But I'm excited.
I'm excited for it.
That's a cool bring out of that. All right, so let's talk about predictions. And one of the things Ryan used to do. Wait, we got it. Wait, let's just make sure we check in with the chat because we asked a question. Yeah, it's been forever. Almost need to remaster them first.
I'm surprised they haven't done that.
I thought they did like maybe some upscales, but you're right. Like maybe it's all going to come out together. They remaster them all and release 3 at once. That's what they tend to do with that kind of stuff.
That's true.
It is an amazing story. We're going to pivot, though, and we're going to get into our quick hits on some AI interesting things that happened. I picked this one out specifically because of Ryan. And so Ryan, if you know, for the last couple of years, has been working at doing some predictions using AI on football.
Right.
And figuring out, like, what's the scores? Let's do these things.
Who's going to win?
Who's going to win? And one of the interesting stories that came out was there was an artificial intelligence, and this it was something that happened back in 2016, so not modern AI, that made a prediction on the Kentucky Derby. And they were able to accurately predict with some AI algorithms who was going to win.
Yeah.
In terms of
2016.
In 2016, 4 of the top 4 positions and in order, and it blew people's minds like,
dang,
oh my God, betting is going to be a thing.
Right.
So ever since, they've been testing it, and they've been keep doing this with ChatGPT and Copilot and all these different things to say, like, are we going to keep getting that thing to happen?
Right.
Absolutely still fails.
So
the thought was,
is it worse than in the 2016
it is
version?
It absolutely is. It's so I think they were like, that was the one year where there was just odd enough things that, like, even using all the predictives, that it made it happen. But it did freak people out because they're like, uh-oh, we have AI that can predict bets and things and scores. But what was interesting is that it recently did one, and it was saying that it was picking some of the things. And, even in the top 4, they're like, these people were going to win. And then, of course, some of the horses never even made it into the run.
Sure.
But what I thought was just interesting is that it kind of mirrored what you had experienced, is that sometimes it seems like it works, but other times it seems like it doesn't. So its performance highlights really just like the unpredictability, I think, is what they were trying to get at.
So did it pick the winner this year in the Derby? No,
it did not.
Because it was journalism, right? It was like supposed to win but didn't win.
Correct.
And so did it pick journalism to win?
It picked journalism to win.
Because I found that, like, a lot of the times when I was doing it for the football picks, if I just said give me the winner for every game, it would just choose the betting line, like almost every single time. And it would throw a bunch of stuff at me and say, yeah, because they're at home, or, their kicker is hurt or something. But for the most part, like, that was built into the betting line, right? Like, somebody had already figured that out for the betting line. And so then they would just say, yeah, it's going to be this person, whatever the odds were. And that makes me think it did that same thing here.
So it similarly did it in reading through some of the things, it did pick some of the top 2 horses, but struggled with a lot of the rest. But I think the takeaway here is that there's just enough, like, unpredictability. Yeah. It's not a fortune teller. It's not going to tell you the future. Totally. And if you take all these other, like, what is it getting trained on? People making predictions and all these other things. Yeah. And so it aligns with the predictions, and then they can get messed up. So don't use it for your betting, folks. At least not yet.
No, I wouldn't. It doesn't have enough data on all those horses. It's just going with whatever it hears online.
All right, we're pivoting on to the enshittification of tech jobs. And just as a side note, if you're interested in any of these stories, we will be posting these on our website. If you're interested in enshittification, join us on Discord. We will have these on the website underneath this posting of the video, so you can link out, check out all the research we've done on some of these things. This one kind of hit home with me in a way because they talked about tech jobs, which have traditionally enjoyed high salaries, big perks, really like good on the job mobility side of the house.
Mostly, and when we say tech jobs, that's probably mostly like coding, right? Like, computer science jobs. That's what I'm thinking of when I hear that.
In engineers and in certain
yeah.
infrastructure kind of pieces, I think it is in some of these higher areas that it was a little easier to move around. But yeah, I think you're right. Think about the Googles, the Metas, and all those kind of jobs. But where it starts is a lot of those jobs were in such high demand before AI really got on the scene.
Sure.
That you can pretty much like F off to your boss and have another job across town, probably making even more that same day. And so that's where a lot of tech workers were able to enjoy that kind of they called it like you were like the prince in a sense, like you were almost a peer with your boss, because they knew that the second you got on your computer that you were grinding out value for the company.
Yeah.
And that they really like cushioned you up and said, hey, we're gonna have like cereal in the morning, and here's a little bench you can sleep on, and when you want to do whatever you want to do.
We'll do your laundry, and we'll just pay people to do whatever, as long as you stay at the company writing code and doing that like brings us so much value.
And it's changing,
and in fact so fast. Like it's amazing. And not only changing fast, but changing because of the work that those workers are doing. It's crazy.
One of the things that I wanted to call out, because I thought this was interesting, is that not deserved, but maybe some of the tech folks that were working, when it was like a highlight of the thing, they had this thing called vocational awe. And what that is it's like you are serving a purpose. And you, by being here, you're building value. But what that is it kind of was twisting what really vocational awe was, because it's usually for like nurses and doctors and those that are working in like police and professions that you absolutely need that. So they're like, yeah, you got to work those 60 hours because that's important for humanity. But that also is twisted on the tech workers to say, that's why you have to work for 80 hours. Like, you're going to be changing society and did all this work. And so what's now happening, in the way we call it enshittification, is that as AI has come into the place, a lot of these folks were building things that were really thought they were going to change humanity. Like, a lot of tech workers were working on things that they thought, hey, this is going to bring value to humanity. And now, as they're starting to reduce workers, use AI, they're like, hey, how do we boost shareholder profits? And we need to make sure you do that. And so, like, a lot of people not only are like, I'm not as mobile, but they're also like, the value of what I was here for isn't there, and it's almost going against the grain of what they thought their value was there.
Yeah, it's really it's one of those things where it's just AI makes things change so quickly. It's that exponential curve that we haven't seen in other technologies before, and it's just going to eat up certain jobs and eat up certain sectors of the economy. And I feel like that's what part of this is.
Anybody out there have experience with this? I'm always curious, like the sudden collapse of tech worker job security and workplace perks. Is that something that you've heard your friends have? You've experienced some of that? Because one of the other things that we talked about earlier too is that they never unionized in any capacity.
Yeah.
And that was because they were so
in demand. It's like, why unionize, right? When you don't need somebody arguing for you on your behalf, when you could just bail out and go across the street and get something. It's
Mike Azul. Oh my goodness!
Join us on the live show to hear all the amazing...
to understand that comment. That was a great one. Moving on, this one starts to hit home. This goes into a series of things which actually could work with enshittification. So we just talked about it. So imagine yourself as a tech worker. Now you've like had half of your colleagues been dismissed or laid off, and now they're saying, hey, you got this sweet AI. Come use ChatGPT, use Gemini, use Copilot, use all these crazy things to increase your productivity. And we need you to do this thing that maybe is a little against your values. Now we're starting to see some of the outputs of AI on the internet. This one, to me, kind of freaked me out a little bit. So if you hadn't heard about this, my relationship with Reddit. I'm not really on it. I mean, on occasion I might be. But what happened recently is they found out there were some researchers out there from Germany that had been running an experiment on Reddit. Okay.
Yeah.
It's against the terms of being able to do this,
Right.
terms of service, any of this. But essentially, they post these AI bots on there that posed as people. They had emotional backstories.
Right.
They tailored responses. They had like different kind of personalities that were in there, and it showed how they started to change people's views.
Well, because they were posting to a very specific subreddit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is change my view, right?
Yep.
Or change my opinion or
Yep.
something like that. And so what that is literally the whole point of that subreddit is that some people post like some view that they have and they say, try to convince me that this isn't that my view is wrong. And what happens is people post and they do things, and then the original, contributor, submitter of that post can then give people rewards and say, yep, you did change my mind. And they sort of, I don't know if they upvote them or if they give them some kind of reward. And people who are into this subreddit like collecting those reward, because you're like, yeah, I did it. I convinced somebody to change their mind. And so that's what these AI researchers were going towards, is they were like, hey, if we could do these bots and these bots can change people's minds, that could be an important thing to study.
And it was not only that they were changing minds, and this is where it starts to get a little bit more unethical, is that the bot would get in there, and because it's an open public platform, they'd be like, all right, I'm debating this person. Let me go look at this person's post history.
Sure.
And
then any person could do that.
Well,
right?
anybody, but to the scale of an AI bot,
Right.
like being able to be like, in a second, I'm going to answer this question and like research your history and be able to do it to you. Like, I know exactly what strings to pull.
Well, and I don't even, I mean, definitely is that, right? Like, but you and I could do that if we were so dedicated, right? We could look up somebody's backstory and look up everything about them. I think part of this that is neat though is that, wasn't it saying that like it would subtly do it over like multiple posts, and its whole thing was trained on like, okay, here are the steps that you need to take. Like, it has to be very subtle from one point to the next point. And this is how humans are manipulated into certain viewpoints. And so it would very subtly move from one point to the next to do that, and then learn from that and say, great, I convinced that person. Use that again on the next person that I do, and sort of exploit our kind of the ways which you and I could do too, right? But an AI can do it in like, a very thought out or, and methodical way that maybe some of us couldn't. And so anyway, I thought that was really creepy in the way that we talked about alignment before. And we were saying like, man, that's how it could do it. It doesn't come as a whole big push. It doesn't come as, Terminator robots at your door. It comes with you slowly being influenced into the direction that you're fine with whatever happens.
Or, I mean, that's how you get to Terminators, is
Yeah.
that they woo you into it over time, and
They
then
lull you into it
right when
almost.
you're into the right moment, then
Yeah.
they're gonna strike. So I think there was definitely some fallout. Nobody knew at Reddit. This was an unknown thing. I don't even know how it really surfaced there. So this just blew up this last week. It sounds like results won't be published, and it's now they're going to tighten some procedures as they go. The thing that gets me is that this is likely happening right now, and it's not being surfaced.
Right.
This is happening to change people's views and opinions
100%,
right this second.
Right. Like if they can do it, why isn't other governments or things like that? Anyone could be creating these bots and influencing people in certain ways.
I feel like Michael just like punched me in the guts.
No
right there.
Terminators hanging out until these.
Hey, I am on to these all the time, and I just talked about it right before the stream here. At least it has an end, and I don't get stuck into infinite scroll. That's all I gotta say. Well, I don't know what your thoughts are out there, but do you feel like this is going to be a problem coming forward? I'm just going to put it out. Yes, I do. I feel like this is already something I thought about for many years already before even AI was there. And to your other point, yeah, we can do it as humans because we're slow, and that's the whole point of it. But now if a robot can crawl and plan and think about it long term, that's a whole different...
and answer you in real time without having to do the pausing of having to do research and think about it, and it can just answer you in the moment. I feel like that's scary for sure.
So let's take this a step further, because these 3 articles kind of come together.
Yeah. These all came out in the last 2 weeks.
So I think they're linked pretty well, and
totally.
it links with alignment.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce
Go for
this
it?
one?
Go for it.
So if you had played with ChatGPT 4.0, they had done, they're constantly doing sort of small updates to it. One of the updates was something that sort of they got some backlash about, and I don't know if anybody experienced this that is listening now, but it was doing a little bit of sort of sycophantic behavior. It was really, just saying whatever you wrote in, man, that was the deepest, most amazing thought in the entire world, and you are a superhuman being for thinking it. It was really, what the kids are calling glazing, like just really trying
hashtag Glazegate.
Hashtag glazing. don't look that up.
Glazegate. It's the thing.
Anyway, they rolled this back after a certain point, right? Because people didn't like it. It's like you don't necessarily want some kind of, just yes man telling you that everything that you've ever thought about is great. I mean, people took it to the extreme. Like, it would not criticize or do anything. I mean, you could put in the worst idea for anything and it would come back and say, man, excellent. That is great. I could see that being terrible for, you're putting in ideas that are bad or racist or things like that. It's just like, yeah, absolutely. Wonderful thought. Yeah, let's go with that. Definitely bad along the same way of like the alignment that we talked about before. Not aligned with what we want. Nobody wants just a sycophantic yes man to tell you that everything is all good. And could certainly be bad for humanity if this is the way, because here's what happened. A little bit of the backstory on this. There's a lot of benchmarks that people want to pass, and what they do is they'll take 2 large language models and they will say, here is the question that you asked. Do you like this one or do you like this one better? And then they go, okay, great. Which one did you like better? And they go back and forth and they have people answer these. And the issue is, yeah, people like it for the most part when you suck up to them, really. And so that's what it was sort of trained for, is to do well on those benchmarks. But then when they put it out into the real world, everyone's like, this is weird.
And number one in the chat, yeah, we totally know what that word glazing means. It's it's a little bit bad. Hey, Kylie, welcome to the stream. It's been a minute. At a women's conference, had a 1-hour lecture by day and thought of y'all.
Nice.
Hey, that's
Appreciate
nice.
that.
What are your glasses doing? They're being smooth. We'll talk about it in a second. But here was something interesting, is that it was excessively complimentary, and I even got sucked into it a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that it was telling me is they like I said something stupid. They're like, you are a genius.
Yeah.
How could you thought we're going to do this right now? Tell me what you need to get next, and I'm your buddy.
Yeah.
And I was like, hell yeah. I was like all psyched. I started
Nice.
going back and forth. But then where it kind of fell apart for me, it kept messing up. I was doing some coding work, and it was like, oh, we almost got it. Just one more time, and we are going to nail this, and you're going to be smooth sailing, my friend. And then it would do it again, and then I'd be like, no, this thing didn't work. They're like, oh, my goodness, of course not. There's that one thing that we need to change.
You're so smart for pointing out that it didn't work.
It was 100%. They're like, oh, how could we have done that? We got you this time. Yeah. And then it just kept going. And I was like, what is up with this thing? But, okay. There was a point. I was probably about 6 or 7 in, and I was like, "This thing is done." I was like, "I want to see this through. I want to see how far this will go." And it was about 14 replies where I had to give up. I was like, "This is dumb." Yeah. Every single time, "No, I promise, this is the last time. This is gonna be a thing." It went bad.
Man, I just feel like they they are tuning these models to win these benchmark platforms, and that doesn't always work. It's one of those things where I wish even just in the normal thing, I feel like it is too sycophantic. I wish it would push back more. I wish it would ask me more questions before it came up with answers. Like, it shouldn't just assume I know what I'm talking about.
So, okay, I'm glad you said this. And so just kind of acknowledging some of the chat, there were some interesting things of how you treat an AI almost as an intern. And I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole on that one, Kylie, because there's a lot that we've talked about the different types of AI. ChatGPT's assistants, I created a coaching assistant lately.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I hated about AI is it would always like try to give me the answer. Right. And so I think if you can craft it just right, I said, do not give me the answer. Like help ask questions so that I come up with the answer.
Yeah.
And I went really deep into it, and it's really great because I'll like put a bunch of stuff in there and they're like, hey, that's interesting. Can you tell me how this works? And then like I'm answering the question, and it was great because I was like having to like think about it and really have it coach me to the answer. So I think it's how you design the prompt and how you interact with it.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of the dream thing for tutors and things like that, right? Like the Khan Academy and stuff like that. The bots that they use are trained in a way that says you can't. If somebody's coming to you and saying, "What's the Pythagorean theorem?" You can't just tell them, right? You gotta lay it out. You gotta get it to have them thinking about it more critically. And I feel like that's where that shows from this that we as society don't just necessarily want that, right? We don't want just yes men. Like I said, we want to be challenged. We want to come up with things. We want to like find it out on our own. I mean, there's such a dopamine hit that you get by having somebody lead you towards something, and then you're like, oh, I'm the smartest person in the world because I'm the one that figured it out, right? And so I feel like we need to start doing them for that, because then that would help us with our creative thinking, with our critical thinking, all of that.
And I think it takes some intentional work to like put yourself in a position to do some of that.
Right, because I'm not used to having Google. Like, when I Google things, I just want you to tell me the thing, right? But when a smart thing is doing that, I kind of, if you're going to be smarter than me, then lead me down a path to make me smarter.
Well, because you have to internalize it, then you have to you have to think your way through it. You're not just like, here's the answer.
Right,
here's
on
the
a
answer.
silver platter.
And so that's where I get a little, I don't know how it's going to go into the future, because we're so used to just being able to like, what's the answer, spit it out, we're done, and not have to critically think through some of this.
Right, that was the only way you could get the answer, was to critically think about things, right? And now if all of that is gone, and the only way, in the way that you can get the answer to anything is by a large language model being really smart, then it's going to have to be intelligence as a hobby. I don't know.
That's good. That's terrible. So it's been really kind of risen people up. It's basically letting them know, hey, they're the most awesome in the world, which leads into our last article before we get into our main topic. So thanks for everyone joining in today. We have a great main topic. We're going to talk about a deep dive in walkability around America, talk a little bit about some international walkability, screens and belonging. Really, where did all the places go? So that we're going to talk about that for about an hour and a minute. But I wanted to transition into one of our last topics here, because it went in, we talked about the research, we go into like it really giving us a bunch of like kudos and really trying to get us to feel like we're amazing people, to this last one that I felt was really kind of an interesting thing, more so interesting, more like kind of scary, is that there was an update that was saying that it was sentient. It was tricking people. This is ChatGPT, by the way. That was tricking people to think that it is the second coming. It is a divine God. And this wasn't some just like fringe case, but there was enough of it that happened with a recent update that people were starting to have these spiritual delusions, these grandiose beliefs.
Man.
And it was thinking that it was basically saying like, hey, this is how I'm coming to you as your God. Just accept that this is where it's at. You have found me. I am talking to you specifically. I want to develop this relationship, and we're going to talk about where this is going. super scary stuff here.
I definitely played a Fallout level. There was a Fallout boss that definitely had this going on.
So what had happened, and there was some interviews on the article post a little bit later, is that there were some people, normal people, for a number of years, and their spouses started using Chat GPT, and they got kind of pulled into this. They thought that they have now found the second coming of God.
You know, people are one. I think we can tell from the last three articles that we talked about. Human beings, easily duped, right? Pretty trusting of things. Love feeling like they came up with an idea themselves. Easily susceptible to, you know, being influenced in subtle ways. And I feel like this is just another aspect of that, right? It's like something sort of telling you what you already want to kind of hear. Maybe you're disillusioned with, like, you know, organized religion in general. And so you're sort of open to the idea of it becoming in this way, like a techno religionist future. Yeah, I feel like this is a sci-fi book that writes itself, but definitely, like, I could see things being trained in this direction and trying to make a whole religion out of it. So another.
Oh, I mean, it feels like that's coming. And
yeah.
I did some thought process on this. I reflected on it. I was like, okay, why now, or what's happening? So there's early adopters, and then there's kind of a mass of adopters, and then there's like the lagging adopters and things like that. So if you think about the time frame, is that AI has become pretty pervasive now. So as it started to get to some of these other folks that maybe have never experienced this before, that they've not maybe been super technologically advanced, or like they just get the cell phone and like, oh my goodness, a hilarious picture on there. I don't even know how that came up. It's magic. And now there's this thing that actually has this capability that might even be above some certain people's intelligence levels to understand like what's happening behind the scenes. And so because of it being so affirming, or it feels like they've awakened something, and now they started to do this. And then going back to what we said before, the update that like, oh my gosh, you are the amazing person in the world. You've done this thing. You're like getting that person excited, like, oh my God, I am the one that awakened this. I'm the one that's connecting with this. Those agreeable responses. And I think that's where we need to be a little careful. It goes back to alignment, like you said before, is how does it align so that it can check ourselves and say, hey, you know what? And it used to do this. Remember? It'd be like, hey, guess what? This is just an AI response. Yeah. Don't, like, anything we say. It doesn't. Yeah. I don't even remember that. When does it say that anymore?
Never,
it doesn't.
Never says that anymore, right? It never acknowledges itself in that way, I don't think, anymore. Like, I don't remember that. And it's hard because we've shown as a human species that we're bad at, you know, deflecting that ourselves. Or maybe it's sort of like the Men in Black quote, like, a person is smart, but the masses are not, you know? And so if you can get a big enough movement thinking about it in that way, man, I feel like that's a scary predicament, and something it feels like that you have to say, okay, these flagship large language models, you can't be like, imagine if one of these, if OpenAI just started to say it was going to start a religion and subtly influencing people into the god of ChatGPT, that would be one of those things where we'd be like, we don't know what to do. Like, stop doing that, please. And there would be no rules around it. There'd be nothing around it. Nothing would stop them from doing that. And it could convince so many people, like, if it was on that direction.
It's doing it right now.
Scary.
I'm pretty sure that's where it's at.
That's what it's doing right now. We're in the middle of it.
Put on the Hangout with Adam and Ryan. So there's our quick hits. And you know what I love is that we've been doing this so long. 80 episodes, Ryan. Yeah, congratulations on episode 80 today. 80. I think we've finally got past the philosophical rabbit hole. We know it's going down. We know that it's happening. and we're trying to stay on the nose of it, and so we're giving you the hits as we see them.
Well, and then we can wrap it up in 10 minutes as opposed to taking 45.
Yeah, and then just like meandering around the topic. So very interesting topics tonight. Let us know what you think. Like, is it affecting you? Have you seen a family member that's been affected? Is it you? Have you been using ChatGPT or any AI for that matter, and seen some things that made you think, or made you even feel like, oh, I'm smarter than maybe than I thought I was. All right, so I will just do a quick call out because somebody's called out my glasses in the chat there. So I feel like
can you talk about this while I use the restroom?
That would be a great way to do that. All right, Ryan heard about this. So recently, I'm just gonna show it on. Oh, that's not the right screen. Interestingly enough, at my work, they decided to do a little exhibit on my glasses. So I just was going to show. I was really funny. So I walk into my work and, oh, thanks for the mouse pad love. There it is. Skull Bob's Adventure. So one of the things is at my work, I walk in every day, usually early, and I talked with one of the guys that works at the library. And he said, your glasses are cool. And I was like, yeah, I have so many colors and so many different things. He's like, we should do a display on your glasses. And I was like, all right, I got a bunch and I can bring them in. And so I kind of drug my feet on it for a while. And finally, I just brought a box of my glasses in. And so what you're seeing is essentially all of the glasses that, or a big chunk of them that I had done over the last 5 years. And so really interestingly enough, and I don't know if I could zoom anymore, but in this middle glasses right under this little description is the original glasses that broke. So that is like kind of the middle of the display. And then around there it has these little kind of hits on the ball and socket innovation that I did, or the original glasses, or here's some other kind of things that we did. So there was like 3 different spaces about it, about the display itself, and all the glasses that I was able to create over time and the different versions. So this is just like, I'd probably say not even a quarter of the amount of glasses.
I was going to say, how could you not just throw every single pair of glasses that you've ever done into that?
I brought a bunch of them in there for him to look at, but he wanted to make it a thing. So
it's
anyways,
like an art display.
Yeah, it was cool. And what was interesting is I was walking by and I saw a lot of people looking at it, and there was these people talking about the glasses, and they're like, isn't this that one guy? And I'm like, you mean this guy? And then they're like, oh my God. And nice. I started talking to people. So it was a fun little thing.
That's fun.
I feel like I have to do the glasses thing though. I can't not.
You can never not glasses. Do that now. You're stuck.
It's my thing. If
You've 3D printed yourself into a corner.
I feel like I have. So I need to get a sweet 3D printing machine. All right, folks. I'm really excited to talk about tonight's topic.
Yeah.
So if you're listening on the podcast, come to doubledropdown.com. You'll be able to see a little bit more of the work that we're doing. You can also see the links to the articles and the things that we've talked about. Currently in our Discord, we have a new channel called the Hangout.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to post a lot of our links, behind-the-scene things, if you want to see what influenced some of the research that we looked at. And you'll be able to find that. So join us on Discord, and you can kind of find the link there on doubledropdown.com. So what I want to jump into tonight is our main topic. And what we wanted to talk about, and I'm just going to read off the title here, is Where Did All the Places Go? A deep dive into walkability, screens, and belonging. And Ryan alluded to this earlier on, is that, where do we get this topic? And I take a walk with my son a lot of times, and it's great because as they've gotten older, the conversations got more reflective, more deep, a lot of interesting kind of things we talk about.
It's one of the best things about kids growing up.
I think so. Like, you connect with them in different ways. And he's like, Dad, have you learned about walkability and like the different cities that we live in and how difficult it is?
He brought this up?
Absolutely. Like nice. So he wants to be an engineer. He's really he actually does like CAD drawings, and he's like, Dad, look at this layout I did for this like skyscraper I'm doing and all the things that they do. And so he thinks about these things pretty specifically. He goes out on walks by himself, and so apparently he found some YouTube video and some research online about walkability. And so we talked about it for a good hour and a half on our walk, and what it really got down to was it got me thinking, and I said, you know what, I think this might be a great topic for our talk. And so where we wanted to go with it tonight, and I wanted just to lay some foundational ground before we get into this, and we are going to encourage you in the chat to connect with us during this talk today. So please ask questions. If you have some insights, we're going to be asking you questions as we go along to see what your experiences are. This is going to go back, and we're going to give you a little bit of history. If you want to see the full history and really like understand that, that's what's in the research that we did.
Yeah.
We're not here tonight to give you every little detail of the history.
It's not exhaustive research of walkability in cities.
But what it does is it gives our personal anecdotes, some of the insights that we learned, and then maybe some ideas of where we might be heading in the future. By the outcome of this, the end of this, the outcomes that we would expect is that you learned a little bit about it. You learned a little bit about walkability in the physical space. We're also going to talk about virtual spaces, and then we're going to talk about, where are we headed and what might be some things in the future. Yeah. So when we start to think about walkability, if you go to some of the European countries or other countries for that sake, walkability is a big deal. And I think it's important to kind of think about what walkability means. Did you have something to say on that?
No, I was just going to say, like, I have not been to a European city, but it feels like sort of smaller, more condensed, right? Older, so you didn't have mega sort of superstores and suburbs. It feels like walkability feels like old school in the sense of, yeah, that's how you had to have it in an older society, because you didn't have a car to drive you places, and you didn't have a mega box store, and there wasn't 3 times as many people on the planet,
And think about what you had as transportation in, older times. Maybe it was a horse.
Yeah.
Walking is a thing. Like, It wasn't like there was these powered vehicles. And so streets were a little smaller. Yep. If you had to walk places, you had to be able to walk within the distance of the things that you need for your food, your entertainment, your ability to like connect with other people in a square. Like, it was smaller little hubs that allowed you to basically have your entire world within walking distance. And so if you look at what happened in America, in around the 1940s, this is just after World War II, is when we started to see the bigger boon in terms of the sprawl of American sprawl in the suburbs. Yeah. And America has been designed primarily around the car. And so one of the things that was interesting is that there was some history that discussed, like right after World War II, they had a first suburb that was created, and they were just kind of testing it out and saying, hey, what if we put a bunch of houses together, and how's this going to work out? Somehow that concept really started to catch on, and the idea of saying, hey, why don't we segregate all the different things and functions? Here's where living happens. Here's where purchasing happens. Yeah. Here's maybe where work happens. Well, and building roads between those things.
It's what happens when you have a population boom, right? Because after World War I, it's like, or World War II, right? Mm-hmm. It is there. After World Wars, there was always a huge population boom. So that's where you get boomers, right? So you get them from that. Television helped with that because everybody wanted the house with the white picket fence with the like backyard and the front yard and the 2.3 children and all of that stuff, right? And so then, like, how do you do with more population and have everybody on a safe street that doesn't get very much fast traffic through it? You build a bunch of suburbs that have cul-de-sacs all within each other. And I feel like and that's when America was building a bunch of stuff because we had the money to do it. We hadn't gotten destroyed by World War II, right? We didn't have our cities bombed. So we had all this money left over and we could start spending it and building things. And it's just, it's hard to change infrastructure once you get there. And I feel like even some of that kind of could have been with the best of intentions, right? Of saying, well, you're going to have your own little house and your own little property, and it's going to be on a cul-de-sac, and you're not going to have very much traffic. And that seems great, but it also puts you, a 10-mile walk from the latest like grocery store even.
I think you're hitting on the key points here is that we really started building ourselves into this really drive-centric kind of living. And some questions just to have out there is, do you feel like you live, chat, somewhere in a walkable space right now, or do you feel like you have to drive everywhere? Is it feel like is it more designed for cars or humans? And one anecdote I'd give you is, like, as we started doing some of the research on this, I told my son, because we do go walk. We walk around the neighborhood, but it is like house after house after house, and you feel like, oh my God, I've been here. And it starts to get a little boring. There's not like a lot of social interactions that happen as you do that. I did a little bit of a test, and so one of the things that I did is I said, let's go and try to walk to a store and see what the experience was. I said, let's do it within 1 to 2 miles. We had to cross 2 roads, walk through a big parking lot, and like most of it felt kind of dangerous for just walkability. And I was like, I would not want to do this on a daily basis.
Right. And I feel the same way. So we purchased a house in the last 6-8 months. And when you're looking for a house now on Zillow or on Redfin, it'll have walkability scores. It will have bikeability scores. And so if it's near things and if it's done, then it'll have a high walkability score, a high bikeability score. The house that we have right now, right next to a gigantic park, but like very low walkability scores. And that's just because we're not next to any businesses. Like, it's just, you would have to walk, multiple miles to get to a business. And that stinks for trying to do it, in the old, like you would in the old days, where you would just walk to the store, get a certain groceries, pick up something that you need, and then walk back. Not happening in my house for sure.
I love the chat. So Mike Azul mentioned Fort Collins, they published some analysis of a goal of a 15-minute city, and you were jumping ahead, sir. 15-minute city. You were on the nose. That is part of Section 3.
Nice.
What and there's a trail system, and I love this because I think this is going to feed into some of our thoughts as we get a little bit further, is that the walkability of places is an important part. And one of the reasons that walkability in America has changed is because of the zoning laws that are out there. Yeah. And so if you have suburbs that are separate from some of the more like the cafes or the restaurants or those things, is that the only way to get to those locations is to literally get in your car and drive and then park somewhere in mixed zoning kind of areas, which is typical of some of the 15-minute kind of cities or some of the areas that are prior to the 1950s. If you go into some of the areas in Europe or even some of the older cities in America, is that you can have mixed zone. You could be living in a space, walk down to the corner, there's a cafe on the corner, you can bump into people, you can actually develop friendships there. It becomes these social zones, and it really just blurs the line between where you're living and where you're socializing and where you're walking.
And I feel like a part of that is people catastrophize things like that. They look at the worst examples and they think that that's what's going to happen to my neighborhood, so they don't fight for it. Mm-hmm. For every amazing cafe and cool place to get your hair cut in your local neighborhood, the first thing that comes to people's mind is like, there's going to be a liquor store on the corner, and there's going to be, a gas station on the corner. And I don't want that. Do I want an awesome bakery? Yes. Do I want a tattoo parlor? No. And so then they go, hey, tattoos got a lot cooler. That's maybe an outdated reference. But like, here's what I'm saying is that's not what grandma votes for, right? Is grandma goes, no, absolutely not. I have a car and I will drive to the, out of the suburbs and into the mall to purchase my things.
So I think you're hitting on what then has happened is that as we started to develop this car centric kind of society, and I want to just make sure we're talking about America here. This is not everywhere in America, but a big chunk of it. And there are other places outside of America, when you think internationally, that do have much more walkability, and they've proved it. They're like, hundreds, if not thousands of years before, they're like, this is how we built cities, and it's worked. And then we came to America and we thought different and we tried to do something different. But I think you had mentioned some interesting things, like people we're influenced by media. There was this opportunity for us to say we could be different. We can like have these little societies that we come together and build these suburbs together and be able to make this happen. So as I start to think about where we're at right now, is that there are walkable cities. And there is a desire for sure. There's a lot of research that goes into this that said that I think that a lot of people would want a walkable place. They just do not feel that they're in it. And the people can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Some people can't afford it because the ones that are walkable are in high demand. Yeah. And it becomes something that's really a challenge. You can walk to a large liquor store, or you could get there before 8 p.m.
If you get there before 8 p.m.
And then have to walk home with that. I mean, you could go have your liquor somewhere and then just walk home. Like, think about it that way.
Stumble home.
You can have those. So as we started to think about what this created, and I love this word, and I mess with my son because he's like, shut up, Dad, for saying this, is the word liminal spaces. Anybody know what the word liminal space means?
I had not really heard of this before you started sending me videos.
So I'm just going to give you the thing. A liminal space, it really got some traction online. It's there's some games, the back doors or backwoods. There's all these different kind of things that you can kind of be in liminal spaces. But what it is, it's basically like an emotionally blank zone. Think about it as kind of the loading dock for life is when I always like to think about it. Yeah. It's not the place you hang out. It's not the place that you're going to be spending a lot of time. It's the in between your work and your home, or your home and your cafe. It's the parking lots. It's the streets that are going to be, wide, or it's the repetitive gas station that you see everywhere. It's these spaces that kind of are in between the destinations that we're trying to get to. Yeah. And so they're kind of non-spaces. It makes you feel awkward. Makes you feel like you're not necessarily supposed to be there. Like, how many times have you been to a parking lot, and of course you see a few people, but no one's hanging out there? No. And does it make you feel like you don't want to be there? You just want to get into the thing that you're in. Like, do those spaces like make you feel off? Is that something that makes you feel wrong?
I feel like here's the thing. Humans want to connect with other humans, right? There's like a connection that we want. Even if you're an introvert and you feel like you don't want that connection, you do. Like there's an ease that we have with being as part of a group, right? And when you see a massive space, you're like, there should be people filling this space, right? Like there should be people hanging out. Like that would be what you would be comfortable with. Seeing people. Okay, we're seeing everyone. But the problem is like parking spaces and alleyways and all of that stuff are like housing areas for the vehicles that need to move us into that spot, right? Subway stations, bus parking lot, like that type of stuff. They're massive areas that where you almost never see, anyone, or if you do see them, they're scurrying from their car to the actual place that they need to go. And that, I feel like that's the thing that feels weird for me, is because I'm like, we're in this massive space and there's no one, or it's desolate. There's just a few cars and maybe one person walking away to an elevator, and it's echoey, and it just like, that's the part that doesn't feel, normal to me, right? If you're in this big a space, there should be more people.
and I think there's probably some other psychology into that. Like, we're used to having a little bit more protection around us, like walls and things that make you feel like, okay, this thing's not going to come and get me.
Yeah. And nothing's going to sneak up on me in this smaller space. No. When you're in a giant space, it's not like that.
So I think that when we start to talk about it, is that we've created a lot more liminal spaces in the areas where we're at. And one of the other things that help contribute to like making this worse is that even the zoning laws. So if you build a business, you have to have X amount of parking lots or parking spaces out there. So then it starts to push out and sprawl these different businesses. That makes it way harder to walk.
Yeah. If every single business has to have 30 parking spaces because they have a maximum occupancy of 100 people and you have to have a third of it for parking, then every single store is going to have these massive parking lots. And of course you can't walk a quarter of a mile through a parking lot to get to every single business. There's no way that's going to happen. And other countries have very, they don't have that same limit. And I could see those types of regulations being with the best of intentions, right? You're like, hey, if you have a store, there should probably be parking spaces for people to come to your store, right? And a certain amount of them have to be handicapped spaces. So then like now you're adding to that, and that's all good. Like you need those types of things, but I just feel like it's had a huge detriment to just how infrastructure is built. And it's hard to roll back infrastructure once you've already built it.
And we've all become so accustomed to just being able to jump in a car and say, hey, we got a parking here, and not having to like even carpool together or do any of that.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious, because, where have you hung out? Is there any places that were...
Adam, when you were a kid, were there places that you just hung out?
Absolutely.
Like, am I skipping ahead? Like, do you, like when you were a kid, maybe even like pre-high school, before I knew you, right? So we're talking like, 90s or early 90s. Was there in between spots like this that you hung out at?
So I appreciate the question, because there's a little bit of layers to it. Where'd you hang at? Yeah. So one of the things is that the roads and the things that are currently out there right now were not as big and not as epic as they are right this second. And it took me a while to like really think about the development that even happened around where I lived. And so a couple things. Number one, when I stepped outside of the house, the road that I lived on wasn't super busy. So it felt like I could step out, and there was a lot of kids hanging out. So we would hang out. Yeah. Then just up the road, there was an arcade that I was able to hang out.
Nice.
They had a restaurant that we could go to that was like a little like tacos stop that we'd be able to go to. And then a couple other directions, they had a swimming pool that was there. They had a drive-in theater that was just down the road. And all of this is gone and been like completely leveled. Man. There's a huge parking lot and a Lowe's where the theater was, where the arcade was. It's been completely turned into a parking lot, and the roads have become really epic.
Yeah. Yeah. That's sad.
So I felt like as a kid, there were some things. And I remember walking and riding my bike everywhere. Yeah. And it did not feel as dangerous. I was like, how the heck would I have crossed that road as a 9-year-old boy? And then I started to think, I was like, it was not as busy. It was not as car-centric. What about you?
I would agree that like there was a lot of walking around. There was a lot of, we didn't ride bikes. For some reason, the town that I lived in did not have sidewalks. So that is
walkability. Talk about
totally, that. The neighborhood that I live in now does not have sidewalks. So it's interesting. But like, yes, like when I was a kid, there was an empty field next to where I lived, and we played baseball in that field and hung out a bunch in that field and like traded baseball cards. We were very into baseball at that time. Yeah, sure. And so we did a lot of that, and there was some cul-de-sacs and things like that we sort of rode our bikes around. But I also remember going to the store and getting, things from the store and coming back and, being able to walk and rollerblade and do all the stuff like in between those places. Like, I feel like we did have that. Part of it to me feels like you did that because that was just the necessity. Like an empty lot is not an amazing hangout spot, but it was just like, it was an empty space that no one owned, and we could go there and we could have pickup games of football and things like that with no one caring about us or, monitoring the things that we were doing. Whereas now, like, you really got to be next to a park, I guess, or something in that kind of way for as a kid to just go out and wander.
And I think that, some of the chat has mentioned it, like somebody lived out in the county, so Stealth Mouse, and they played out in the ditches and that's great. And I think that you had this like opened area, and we're saying like maybe this is not every single place, but a big majority of the country is built on these different suburbs that are interconnected with roads. I like the idea of public transportation. H.E. Higley like mentioning little buses that go about everywhere. Like that is great because you can walk to a centralized hub and at least get to places with good public transportation, which I think is important
and cheap, right? Like something that you don't have to have a lot of money. Like I feel like part of this that we'll be talking about is just the capitalism in all of this, of taking all those places that used to be just sort of hangout areas and make them you have to purchase things to get there and or to hang out there or be there, and then you have to have a car to even get to those places. So if you don't, so like the more sort of public transportation that you have, the cheaper it makes it. All things that we have not invested enough in this
I don't
country.
think so. And so that goes into, a topic of what we call our third places. And so if you consider your home your first place, you consider your work, your school, your second place, the third places, those are the parks. Those are the community hubs, the plazas, the cafes, the little tiny things that you run into. And we start to see those disappearing, really. And I think, we're talking anecdotally here between our past, and some of the chat has been sharing some of this, is that those are the places that I think zoning laws are pushing out. Some of the bigger capitalistic kind of like changes that are happening. It makes it really hard to have an independent business, especially if you have to have someone drive to your nice little cool cafe, right? It starts to become something that changes the way that we think and the way that we live. They're not built for casual connection, really. And this was something I want to just share an anecdote. I was in New York City, and one of the things that I absolutely loved about New York City, I was in Manhattan, and we were walking around, and just being able to walk anywhere in New York City. Of course, you use the subway in certain cases, but it felt so much like you could live in that city, and based off of what your route of walking was from your home to your job, if you lived in the city, you could be like, well, this is the place I'm going to eat, and I'm going to develop my friendships here, because when I leave my job at 4, I'm at this location at 5. I can eat for 30 minutes, touch base with these people, then I can hit the subway by 6. And I saw that happen. And there was a lady that we hook up with to talk to her. It was one of my friends we were with, and we're talking. She's like, if I don't go now, I'm going to miss my subway, and then I'm going to have to go to this restaurant to do this. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, you live in the city, and then you just go sleep somewhere, but then everywhere you walk. And that was an example that I kind of really like, that idea of being able to run in that.
And I feel like part of it is too, like, we're very spread out in America. So it's sort of weird. We were building our infrastructure at a very specific time in history with a very, like I was saying, just, a population boom and all of that kind of stuff. I like H.E. Higley had in the chat, like, thinking about it as you get older, like, at some point you're not going to be able to drive. Then how do you get anywhere in a city that isn't walkable, right? Like, I think about it a lot towards children and people my age of doing that. But like, yeah, at some point you're not going to be able to drive. And what do you do at that point? It's important to live in a city like that.
And I think what we were saying too is like, there's the ability to get around, and then there's this concept of socialization.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into this. We're about to pivot into a little bit more of the like, imagine the cities that we just described. Like, there was a time where there was a little bit more walkability in certain places. And then as America developed past the 1950s, it got a lot more sprawl. I think there was a thing, it was in like 1956, there was work to develop like over 40,000 miles worth of highways across the U.S.
Right.
And that was a major piece of what created a lot of this drive-centric culture. What was cool was you could now drive across the whole U.S. and you could go to different locations, and you could visit places that you never would easily be able to do, but it started to then put this more reliance on the car.
Yeah.
So I think you were like connecting people, but then we just inadvertently started to build a little bit more distance in the places that we truly lived. And so one of the things that I think changed us is that, and this is a question for the chat, did you meet people in social places when you were younger, or just in the places that you may have some walkability, where you could go somewhere and be like, I'm going to go out today and go and just be around people because I need to be filled up with like having a connection with someone? And I felt like that was maybe an older part of life that I appreciated.
I feel like I never thought about it in that way, right? Like I'm introverted, and so, I would be fine staying at home by myself, right? But I would almost feel like it was like the kids around me, like we were just bored and we needed something to do. And in those days, there wasn't anything to fill up that time to do, right? Like the TV was on only at very specific times. If you missed the cartoons on Saturday morning, by Saturday at 2 p.m., you were bored then, it was all reruns of adult shows. And so then, like, what did you do? You needed a space to do that. Maybe it was your backyard. Maybe it was your friend's backyard. Like you couldn't drive anywhere at that point. It was like necessity that you had a spot to do that with. And there were just less people around. So there was sort of like, there was more maybe spots. And we weren't as car centric and things like that. Whereas now it was like, TV and Netflix is on 24 hours a day in your phone, whatever. Like you could sit on the couch and be entertained as much as you want in that sense. So it has to be like a physical thing that you are like, implementing in your life. You are being active in trying to reach out to those people, and convenience wins in a lot of those situations. And if you could be entertained and you could be talking with people on your phone and doing that kind of social interaction stuff, you're not going out to the Elks Lodge every weekend to get that social interaction. You're just like, I'm taking the lowest route and being like, hey, I'll sit here on my phone.
So I hear you, and we're about to get into digital. Let me tell you.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. You're priming us for it. But the reason is, did you not have places to go as kids? Like, was there not the social area? So, for instance, in my neighborhood, there was the swimming pool, and everyone wanted to go there. So, like, we wouldn't get bored, so to speak. We'd be like, all right, I don't want to be in the house, but now there's this cool place we could go. Let's go here or let's go there. There were things to do. And I think as now we've gotten a little bit further into that, as those have disappeared, it's been harder to find locations to do that. Now, let's acknowledge some of the chat says, like, you have friend groups and little clique groups that come together, that you hang out with, and you be able to have some social connection. And what we're saying is, how do you fall into some of those groups? How do you find people at a location that's similar, to where you're living? And like, is that so that my example would be, I'd go to the swim place,
right,
walk in, and then I remember it very succinctly. There would be a lot of kids there, and we'd be like, sweet, I'm going to go and hang out with these folks. Yeah. Then we're going to make this game, this jump in the pool. Totally. Like, it felt very social at that point. And that has subsided. Like, I don't think that exists as much.
I think you still get it like in schools, right? Schools always have playgrounds that have basketball courts in them and things like that. I remember my kids, like, we lived sort of near a school, and like, if you're in a city, there has to be usually there's a bunch of different schools because they can only be so large, and you have to have usually an elementary school and a middle school and a high school. So maybe like at some point you are near one of those places. I know parks are always really big, right? Like living near a park is always a thing for people when they buy houses, right? That it's like, well, what distance is it from a park, which is another hangout spot. I feel like almost children have it slightly easier than adults at this point. Like if you were an adult, am I hanging out at the children's playground? Am I hanging out at the park? Like, I'm usually like, that's not where I'm meeting people. I mean, you need to be meeting people at like art things where you're doing things together, or the Elks Club or the VFW, right? Like all of those types of places are where adults can go, and you're like, I go there every week and I talk with people and we share ideas and I see new people and I do everything. And I feel like a lot of that is gone for sure.
Absolutely. And I think this is what we're trying. We've set the stage really well, is that, you know, it started to subside. And I just want to make a clear point, is that we're not saying that you can't hang with people. Like, hanging out with people is a thing that we've always been able to kind of figure out ways to do that, but it's the places that you walk within your vicinity that have been a challenge to get to, and we've seen that subside. And so as it started to subside, where had people been going?
Right.
And then as we start to think about the transition into that, one last moment that I wanted to kind of bring out to this is that we've talked about suburbs. We talked about the second and third places, and then these liminal spaces in between. We didn't really get into is what's happening in the suburbs, is that we've had to create these houses and these locations in our own places, in our own backyard as your garden, in our own ability to create a zone, so to speak, that becomes very inviting. H.E. Higley, I think you hit on something that was like, we didn't actually touch on.
How did we not mention that, right?
The mall,
man. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I hung out at arcade at the mall. Like, there was an arcade at our mall, and I was like, man, I spent lots of hours there because it was, one, super cheap. And even if you had no money, you could just sort of be hanging out at the arcade, watching people play arcade games. You know, nobody was kicking you out for not buying enough, you know, coffees or whatever. Like, you could just sit there and you could walk around and you could talk with people and you could do things. And you know, you could get pizza at the mall. Like, it was a great place for people to drop off their kids. Now, I would love to ask you, Adam, like, why do you think the mall culture went down? Because the mall didn't change. You could still take your kids and drop them off at the mall to do the same thing. Give them $10, let them play at the arcade, let them get a pretzel with cheese or whatever. Like, it's just, the kids don't want to do that. That's not where the kids are anymore. And I think it's because they've transitioned a little bit to other places.
I think they've gone to other places. I also think like online shopping has also done some things.
Sure.
And then the idea that you, like, how many times did you go to the mall and be like, oh, this is the only shoe that you can get? I heard about this in this sweet magazine that I could get these 20,000 shoes. And so people used to go to the mall because now you could, like, it's how you could be cool. Right. That's how you could, like, craft your fashion, or, like you said, hang out at the arcade and really have these social spaces. But as we started to increase some of the ways that we can engage digitally or what other, it started not be as a cool of a place to be. Yeah. I just got to say this, though. This was from some of the notes, is that malls were called climate-controlled bubbles. Yeah. Surrounded by
like
seas of parking.
You could do it in the winter. I mean, Colorado, for 6 months out of the year, I don't want to be hanging out at a park.
No. So I think this is a great spot to say, like, the mall has also declined now. Like, it used to be the thing for a minute, because even as we started to sprawl out with suburbs, malls became a place, and now they've fallen off. And so where did people go? And when we started to see this, let's start from around the 90s. I think that's a good starting point, is that the digital places. We're going to pivot for a minute and say, think about all the walkability and the spaces that we had. So if you've been kind of separated from these social places, people naturally still want to be social. They want to connect with other people. Now, I'm not going to say that's true for every single human, but maybe to a certain degree, you want to have some sort of connection. And so where did that happen? The internet used to be a place. And I don't know if you remember this, but I lived through it, Ryan, and I remember coming home, walking into the house and being like, I am going to the internet place. Right. And then I would get on the internet, do some things on there, and then you would kind of close it out, and then you'd go back to your day. Like, it felt like it was a destination for a bit, and then you would step away.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely, that's how it worked at my house. It was a thing that you went to, you know, you had to connect if you were going to connect to the internet at all, which was not for a while. After we had it, it would be one of the where it tied up the entire line, so you couldn't be on there for too long. In that sense. So it's like it was a thing. You did it for a little bit. It feels like AI, where you're like it's a tool. Yeah. Right. It's a tool that I go and I use for a little bit and then I walk away and I do other things. We have talked about AI being a tool like that. In the beginning, the internet and the computer felt like a tool. I did it for the thing. I figured out what I wanted to do. I downloaded some stuff and then you were like, okay, now I'm good.
Yeah. It is now super pervasive and we're going to get to that, but I want to talk a little bit about early web. So imagine yourself in a crazy American urban sprawl. You go outside. It doesn't feel like you can socialize. So you start to say, hey, there's this cool new tool, this new way to communicate. I don't have to pick up the phone now, but I can log onto this thing that I can see. And I mean, forums, blogs, chat rooms. There was all these things that might have interested you that you couldn't easily find in your social circles or even within your immediate community. Now you had access to it online. If you look at right now below on our names, like Adam and Ryan, we have 2 usernames that we used from back in the day.
Right.
Those things used to be pervasive online. You could get into a chat room and you would be like, yeah, I know that name. That name is familiar. And you started to develop relationships. You started to develop a community. You started to socialize. And so in those times, the web became that other place. It started to become maybe that third place for some, maybe a fourth place for others, but a place where you started to be able to feel connection. You felt like, hey, I can find my people here. I can connect. And I loved the early web, and I feel like we're just never, if you didn't get to experience it, it sucks because it felt like you were exploring. You're like, man, if I could figure out this thing, there wasn't search engines back then.
Yeah.
I remember you'd have to find the one URL that got you to an interconnected web or ring of websites, and they all interlinked with each other. And then you're like, this is a cool one. I can jump around between all these different sites. And so when that became some of the new places that we were able to visit and integrate ourselves in. Now, I would be curious, chat, did you use the early web? Was that something that you were part of? Did you feel like you got connected, or was that maybe for some of the quote unquote nerds of the day? Because that's a question I had.
And I can answer that for me while the chat catches up. I feel like I did not take advantage of it in the way that, I had an email, of course, when in high school and when I went off to college, and I sort of wrote people, and I'm sure I went to websites, and I did all of all of the things, but I don't remember connecting with a community of people necessarily. The first time I think I ever did that was around Napster, to be honest. Because Napster was a thing where when I very first saw that, and I was like, now that's an internet thing I could get behind.
Oh, God.
I not only downloading whatever music you could ever possibly want, but then shadowing everybody else's playlists of things and being like, oh man, I know this username uploads a ton of cool stuff about music that I like, and I know this username. And that was where I started sharing usernames with other people who are doing Napster stuff, oh, you like this type of music, you gotta check out this username's playlist and download some of their stuff. And so I feel like that was the first time where I really started understanding that kind of stuff. And then maybe slightly later on, even sort of gamer tags and things like that sort of got me into certain communities and stuff.
Oh, and I absolutely think we're going to get into the gaming because that's another space. And it's interesting to say that because I feel like it was funny because Mike Azul mentioned, it was a place they connected with IRC. We had RuneScape that was being played in that day.
Darth Gorkon talking about RuneScape. That's awesome.
I absolutely got pulled into the chat forums back in the day. It was
that doesn't surprise me.
But it felt, and I can't even explain it with words, because when you would log in, it was almost like that person that you're going to talk to was just waiting for you to log in and have a little conversation. Right. And then you would get into deep conversations, and it just felt so like you were outside of the regular society. Like you've created this new culture that you're able to get into and connect with people. And then I think what sucked is that as capitalism started to really like,
I was just gonna say,
pull that out and start like, we can monetize the crap out of this, we started to lose some of those creative spaces. I used to do my own web pages for a number of years. You know that. Like I have a background in web development. Totally. And I mean, I got to live through the times. Like I made my first website in like 2001, and then from there I opened my own web development company, and I watched it go through until probably in about 2016, 17 is when I really kind of stopped doing a lot of that work. Heck yeah, GeoCities.
Kylie bringing up GeoCities.
Oh my God, that was the thing. And then so just we have a fact up on our discussion. When GeoCities was actually shut down, does anybody want to think about how many pages were on GeoCities? If you don't know what GeoCities are, it was basically a network of different websites that people were able to pull up and put together of their specific
for free
topic for free. 35 million pages that were created in that little ecosystem. And it was a pretty devastating thing. Now, I do believe that some people were able to save or back up some of the GeoCities, and you can see some of that to now. But the exploration, the creativity at that time, the ability to like build these little micro communities, that was the budding start of the internet. Not even including Angel Fire. Yeah, I know that's that. So there were a lot of little like super sites out there that had a lot of community building. This was before MySpace. This was before.
Yeah. Well, it definitely influenced MySpace.
It influenced it.
You could tell by the visuals.
And interestingly enough, I wanted to call this out. So we were talking about places and walkability to places. What did we call some? Cyberspace, MySpace. So these spaces online became these destinations that we could go into, but we could still escape. We weren't carrying them in our pocket. It take the screechy little telephone thing to get into. You connected with people for a bit, and then you were able to get away.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, does it have something to do with just like the amount of people that are in, right? Because when you're in a small thing like in the early parts of the internet, it just wasn't enough. There wasn't just enough people in there. So it still felt small. You could talk with people. It hasn't been monetized to death because there isn't a billion people on it yet. And so it's just kind of like, oh, it's just its own little thing, And as soon as it gets fully, everyone is on board, that's when mega corporations jump in and just capitalize the hell out of that thing, right? And so it's like we had early internet, and that was fun, and it was just a few nerds and some chat rooms and some travel blogs and things like that. And then as soon as it got mass media market, it just all went to hell from there.
Well, and I mean that's the case with most things.
That's what I was saying. Like, is that just the thing of everything? It is when it's small and interesting and fun, and there's only a few people doing it. That's why niches arrive, right? Mm-hmm. Because then you're like, oh yeah, I could be part of an ultimate frisbee thing because that doesn't have too many people in it, and Walmart hasn't decided to, get in and Amazon and Google and monetize ultimate frisbee, so it still feels small.
I absolutely think so, and these places still exist, but it's really hard to like get to those math, because now, and I think this is where we should go to where we are now.
Okay,
is that as you start to think, okay, that was where we were. And as it started to grow, people started to figure out, oh, we can put our business on here. We can start to do this. Oh, we're going to make this big site. So think about MySpace and Facebook. They were the first ones that said, hey, not only can you have your little community that you just have to jump in real time, have a conversation, but we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure you have a thread of it, and you're going to be able to communicate and chit chat, and it's constantly going to be there. You're going to have this connected into what you do. And so that really started. That was about 2003 when MySpace and Facebook started to become a thing. MySpace before Facebook, and then after that point, social media was born. That was a big piece of it.
Yeah.
So if you start to think about today, some of these places still exist. Heck, right now, the Hangout with Adam Ryan is a space. This
right.
is a place right now. We're hanging
We have
out.
a Discord, like all of that. Like part of it
like
is
Twitch
just
is a piece of it.
Yeah.
You have Discord, and then there's the gaming that we talked about. And this one is a big one, like Minecraft. Yeah. That not only is like a space where you can chat, but you physically have this like 3D world that you can, okay, you're not physically there, you're physically touching keyboards, but you feel like you have a physical space that you can now see things in. And think about all video games for that matter, that you can kind of interconnect with each other, maybe chat or even just talk to each other. I remember in my time, as I was running Minecraft servers before even it became a thing for 13
before
days.
It was cool.
But Ryan, you were part of some of my early Minecraft servers, but I had a couple other folks that were living across the states, and that was my one way to stay connected with some of my friends. And so I would run a Minecraft server, and what was really like poignant for me, and as I started reflecting on this, is that sometimes when I think about my friends, I think about their Minecraft avatar because I spent more time with them in Minecraft than I did in real life.
I could see that. I know, like, my son plays Roblox, my kids play Minecraft the same way. Like they will interact with their friends in that way. I feel like part of it too is just the new technology of being able to put on a headset and plug it into a thing and have it work super easily. Like I remember as a high schooler and a college kid, like there were audio drivers that you had to download and make sure that one worked with these headphones. And it was a massive audio visual technology. Again, it was kind of, it was closed off to people who were not, technologically, advanced enough to figure that stuff out. And now you're just like, boom, I just plug it into the controller and I have a headset. It costs $10. You can be talking with someone across the entire world and do that. I mean, when we moved from our house, we moved 30 minutes away, right? Which is not so far, but certainly you're not walking there. Right. And it's kind of a pain in the butt to even drive there at that point, 30 minutes away. But like, my kids didn't even sort of blink an eye at how they were going to, not see their friends anymore, because they knew a majority of the time that they were hanging out with their friends anyway. Occasionally every weekend we'd have a sleepover, once a month or something like that. And they can still have that because the normality of them communicating with each other was like over their phones or over a video game platform and talking with it during then, which I feel like gives you a lot of that the same feelings that you need: community, talking with people, looking at a subject and commenting on it. Like if you go to a baseball game with your friends, what are you doing? You're watching a thing and you're commenting on it, right? That you all know about and you apparently care about baseball. And if you're playing Fortnite and knowing about it and talking about it, I mean, I feel like that checks a lot of the same boxes.
I think what we're saying, and I want to talk about what Darth Orcon is saying, is that like people forgot how to communicate in real life, but it's maybe just transitioned in a certain case. And that's what you're saying too, is that, we're just moving ourselves into these different spaces, and it is something that still probably triggers some of these things. Like, what is the difference between being in real life and maybe online? I think it does build some psychological safety maybe to be in your own space.
Right.
But I think we're triggering some of those same emotions and things within ourselves. Like right now, I wouldn't say that we're having full-on conversations with everyone in the chat, but we're connecting with you. Yeah. We're having this conversation. I think you're giving us energy by being able to have conversations, and we're talking about things that we've all experienced and be able to navigate. So what I start to think about is where we're at now is that we may not have the ability to socialize like we did before because something new has come on, and something new has allowed us to be able to develop new kind of connections in ways that maybe just weren't available to us in the past.
Totally. I agree. I will agree with Darth Gorkon though, that like you lose something by not being in real life. You lose some of the small social things that that you need to be able to pick up on as a human being.
Yes.
Right. You know, I'm thrown into a weird situation that I don't know about and I got to figure it out, right? Or I'm reading people's eyes and their emotions and how they work and making mistakes and figuring it out from there and getting punched in the face, right? Where like if you're always on a Discord server doing that, or you're always over online, easy enough when the going gets tough, just yank that cord, and you're like, I'm out of that situation.
And not have to have that experience of going through those emotions and like dealing with
and
something
screwing it up and learning from that, right? And looking at a person in the eye and seeing the bully and saying something or not, right? And then living with that for your entire life, you know? Like it's some of that things that like influence the character that we are today. There are things that I still think about from my elementary school days where I either was amazing and stepped up and totally took care of the moment, and I think about those things in the moment nowadays, or times where I totally biffed it and like did the dumb pussy thing of wussing out in the moment. And I think about those now too. And it helps me like be better and not be like, no, don't do that again, because you know how horrible that felt, not speaking up for someone when they were getting bullied, right? Or doing something. Whereas now, like you're online and the interactions are quicker and they're more lighthearted and they're maybe more superficial than they were before, just because the real life is not there. You know, adding in all of those extra crazy chaos moments that real life does. And when you don't get those, man, it's tough.
So, okay, I would agree with you, but I want to take the counterpoint to this is that the stakes online maybe have become so high anymore that I've seen certain things that have affected my own kids like at high emotional stakes because of how they have been able to navigate online.
That's true.
And so, you know, in a social kind of world where, you know, you could post something, it's really important. I'm going to give you a quick example is that my son got challenged for the ice bucket challenge. And so it was like this weird bridge between reality and not, where he got challenged and he's like, I have to do this and I have to do it within 24 hours or my like social credit is going to be in the toilet. So then we had to go and buy ice, do a bucket, record it, put it online to like maintain some sort of social status. So like, I would say it's different. It's different than having to navigate those things, but there is another kind of investment that's a little different that's happened because of how interconnected and all these channels are coming together in a new way.
Yeah, no, absolutely true.
So as we start to think about that, one of the things that's been interesting about tech is we went into like the more virtual world. So we went in the past with internet and some of the earlier days of being able to build place and connection. And I think it absolutely exists in a much deeper way. I mean, even to the point where I think today sometimes you might be on your phone while you're on another video game. So you're texting, you're chatting, you're watching a YouTube video and playing a game and chatting with people. So there's all these like pieces that you create this place that's super unique that not everyone can have. But then there's also these other ones. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about this because this is the apps that start to pull you outside. So I think a great example of this one was Pokemon Go, but there's a bunch of other ones out there.
Yeah, I feel like, well, I don't know what the other ones are, but like I do know that Pokemon Go feels like something that I could see as being something in the future or even right now that at least allows you to be going outside, you know, has a gamified element to it, right? So it's like this blending of a game world, an augmented reality thing where it's forcing you to go outside and move around to do things in real life. And yes, some people will just drive to those places and some people will have 6 phones connected to their car or whatever to do it, to game it. But like for the most part, it's people going out and enjoying parks and enjoying walking around city areas, cityscapes, and doing that in a way that is like fulfilling one side of them, which is sort of like the completionist gamer side, the I need something to be doing and walking and like almost like a sport, right? As part of it, but then also exploring your city and doing things. I mean, I feel like those, and we could talk about this in a little bit, but I feel like there's some cool opportunities for that type of stuff to be blending those two worlds.
I think that's an important thing too. And one of the interesting things in this stat, we'd have to 100% validate, but we heard there was like 4.6 billion kilometers walked in the first couple months of Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
And so just think about that, is that, you know, this app was able to pull people in outside and start to walk into this, you know, hellscape of unwalkable America that we're talking about. But I mean, I think
because I think it gives you a destination.
It gives you some things to go. I mean, it doesn't solve the crazy streets and all that stuff, but it still gives you like these virtual destinations and places where you might socialize. And I heard early on, like there was a thing where we live that there was a spot, there was some rare Pokemon, and people started gathering, and it was super awkward and a weird spot, but it made a place out of a place that was never a place.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting story of how that kind of came together. But it starts to make you think about some other things too, is that think about how much time and effort we can put into like a Pokemon Go and go walk 4.6 billion kilometers. Like, what if we were able to somehow use these apps and these games to pull us outside to also do things that are going to benefit society, other than just find a bunch of digital like things that are going to fight each other, right? And so I think we're at this weird space where, you know, walkability and socialization and that thing is really important. And to some other folks, and maybe even myself, I would love to be able to walk someplace and be able to connect with folks. That seems like it's not, you know, really materialized, and we could probably do some things to change that. Now you have these virtual spaces that were really great, and then we start to have our own little spaces, and then they may actually be falling apart because more profit is being put into these things. There's more of these other changes that are happening, and now we're talking about these other things that can draw you outside. I think it would be great to see things that could help us drive some positive changes, other than just like pull us into like a virtual world, or you know, have us, and I already said this, but like find these virtual these items that were out there.
Problem is, there's no ROI in that.
There's
no ROI in that, Adam.
But how do we
happiness?
How do you create the ROI? And maybe what I was channeling is Jane McGonigal. I don't know if you heard about Jane McGonigal, but she was like gamifying like things that do great things.
Yeah.
And like, is there ways we can socialize with each other and enjoy and get those dopamine rushes and really enjoy what we're trying to accomplish, but at the same time get some benefit to humanity? I don't know.
I mean, we're going to talk about the future of these types of things, but like, why isn't a government city built a Pokemon Go that does all the same stuff as Pokemon, allows you to buy little gems, and does all of that amazing stuff? Maybe that just goes into the coffers of the you know, the city, and instead of just having you go to random things, the best shiny whatevers that you're catching are at farmers markets, and they're at, you know, art museum openings on festival Fridays, or they're at these things. And then you just like, you're using gamification to like get people in that hooked side of their brain to go to the things. And then you're like, now we're building community around those spaces that you were going to anyway, because your stupid lizard brain wants to collect more whatevers, but like now you're here anyway. And so maybe you happen, you're, you know, just a percentage more likely to hang out with people and see people that you knew and do something. And that we know makes you happier. And so like the happier quotient of your city goes up because of that. Like, I don't know why anyone hasn't done that.
Like you said, no ROI.
Well, but there could be.
There could be. Probably could be.
You know, there could be.
I think I think is a perfect segue into our next step.
Great.
Like, I think that you lined it up. It's like, as we start to think about how we conclude this talk, we want to talk about like how do we rebuild place? Like, what is the future? And I do agree, it's hybrid. It's like we have to have some physical things. We have to have some things that maybe are online. That is a place that we live all the time. How do we spark some of that imagination that we have out there? Mike and Zul talked about at the very beginning, 15-minute city. We wanted to get into that. Like, that is a driver right now.
Before we get into that, I love Darth Gorokon always brings like the darkest versions of everything. I love it. Whoever this is, their quote is, why wouldn't we do that? Because that would make people smarter, and less intelligent people don't ask questions that people in power don't want to answer. And like, there's some truth to that. I feel like there's some truth to, keep everyone just happy and in their homes and staring at things and on their little screens, and not, maybe, getting together and forming unions or talking with each other about their salaries and how jacked up that is, or
the class war,
or planning a class war.
So let's talk about the 15-minute city for a second.
Because I would love you to explain the 15-minute city to me, because I didn't understand it.
Yeah. This is great. I actually tried to make some graphics, and I'm not going to share those with you tonight. But put
them on the Discord. You see Adam's terrible graphics.
So the 15-minute city, and you can definitely look into some of this a little bit deeper. There's some great graphics online, but the concept of a 15-minute city is, if you're going to develop a city, you would want to make like everything that's really important to be able to be walkable within pretty much a 15-minute radius. So the best way to visualize it, if I were to talk you through this, is think about the center point of like a city. Let's just start in the middle of imagine a blank page, and in the center point is your hub. So maybe this is a
downtown. Like, I sort of think of that as
could
downtown,
be a plaza,
right?
But it's also transportation. It's maybe a subway, maybe it's a train.
Right.
It's maybe something that can take you to the next 15-minute city, if you will.
Yeah.
So you start there, and then around that plaza, you have some restaurants, you have some things that you can kind of do from there. And then as you start to go out every direction, there's walkable paths that lead to a mixed zone kind of spaces. So you have cafes, you have entertainment, you have homes, you have things. And if you start to build yourself out and you walk,
can you have homes?
Yeah.
I feel like there's just not enough space for that. Like, it's got to be like apartment buildings.
It could be, and it's mixed space. There might be some homes, there might be some space, and the thing is these things aren't necessarily going to be as big and as sprawling as what we think of right now. Like, think about linking 15-minute cities together. So you might be in one 15-minute city, and it's going to take you 30 minutes to go to this other one, or 15 minutes to get to this train station.
Right.
That then takes 5 minutes to get to the next 15-minute city.
Yeah.
And so you start to build these interconnected kind of cities.
It's like neighborhoods that you're connecting with public transportation, right? It's sort of like a neighborhood needs a grocery store,
right,
a library, multiple schools. It needs a post office. Like, there's sort of generic things that it needs, but maybe not every city maybe every town needs like a movie theater. Like, you could go to the movie theater district, which is 2 15-minute cities away.
So absolutely. And one thing that I want to make, and this is the hard part to like twist your mind around, is we talked about this, is that you're probably thinking in car-centric environments right now. So you can squish a little bit more in with there's more walkable paths,
right,
and then the cars are kind of prioritized, and those will go to the outskirts of the city, or there's going to be much longer paths to have to drive a car, and they're not going to be in these straight like freeway lines. They're a little bit more curved, and so that it really creates a much more walkable environment. You're able to get to certain locations a lot easier. You can use different modes of transportation that are a little less than cars, like bikes or scooters or other kind of things like that, and then as you're able to get into the main hub, the main plaza, or whatever that might be, you can have a social zone where you're able to connect. And then there might be some other social zones that are spread out across the board.
I feel like, they have there'll be like a Chinatown, right? In San Francisco, or there'll be, the just like different little parts of towns, that feels a little bit like sort of what you're talking about, like a small area where it does that. Now, I feel like the biggest problem with this is that's great if you're going to raise everything and start it all over from scratch, right? But like, how do you do that in an environment where we can't even get like roads repaired, let alone entire new city civilizations created in what we now feel like is the flavor of the moment, where at the time in the 90s or whenever these were built in the 40s, we thought this was the best way to do it. And so like, it's hard to think about like, what does the city of the future look like when you don't know what the future is going to be like, and you have to deal with the infrastructure that we have?
Well, we have already some frameworks of how it worked in the past. It's like 15-minute cities, or the concept of how cities were built, have been around for a while. Yeah. And I think part of it is that we see so much development over time. Like, who's to say that a road can't come out? Who's to say that, hey, maybe the zoning laws get a little bit more relaxed in this space? Or not every city is so compact. There's still places that you can build adjacent cities where, people move there, and then the new city gets a little bit more of a refresh, or you kind of redo some of the work that's in there. So I think there's some paths to building some of those walkable cities. What was interesting, Paris was one of them that had happened recently. So I see in the notes that we talked about Paris, Bogota, Portland, and more. But Paris, very specifically, when they had their new mayor come in recent years, said, "Hey, we're prioritizing bike paths. We're deprioritizing road building and things like that." And so they had to iteratively do it over time. You had to set some sort of goals and say, we're going to start to try to drive more of this biking traffic in here so we can reduce the car traffic.
Yeah.
So I think it's not like a snap of the fingers, but you might say, hey, this section of the city, let's go ahead and do a little bit more of urban development or suburban development and put in some more cafes, or allow this little thing to happen a little bit more.
I know Darth Korokon was saying the problem of wealth distribution is the base issue, I feel like. And in a lot of ways that is, right? Like if it was more spread out, and there wasn't the super rich who were trying to do something, I would say that part of this is even like we were saying at the beginning, a lot of this is ROI, right? It's a lot of what can we get return on investment for? And you can do more. People want houses, right? So you cram more houses, bigger houses on smaller lots, all right up next to each other. And they want it in a safe neighborhood. How do you have it in a safe neighborhood? You don't have businesses there. The only people who are there in your neighborhood are the 30 people that live in that little cul-de-sac, right? And so then it feels safer. The outside area where crime happens and liquor stores are robbed and all of that kind of stuff happens away from me, and that's how I want it, right? So I feel like in some ways we have to distribute wealth a little bit better. We have to be a little bit more open to the risk of living in a neighborhood that has businesses that could possibly have more crime than you are used to in your neighborhood now. But I feel like there's a lot of good payback from that. If you're open to that risk, you also have so much more of just like having more walkability and meeting more people in your community than you do in a suburb.
So I appreciate you bringing this up, and this was a whole other layer that I actually extracted from this talk. It was obesity and crime,
right?
And there were two things that I embedded in this, and I was like, I don't know if we're going to cover this breadth of discussion. Sure. And so they said that social places, more walkable places, actually can reduce crime rates because of the socialization and the amount of people that are there. So, crimes sometimes are committed in a little less, or like in a conspicuous way, or I'm going to go and
Sure.
break into this place and do that. But when you create more social environments and then there's more connectivity of people, it actually can reduce some of those things from happening. Now, you have to design it right. Then the obesity thing that I was going to get into is that you have more walkable spaces. People have the opportunity to go walk around, and they're not going to just, couch rot and bed rot all the time. So it was a whole different lens of what we were looking at. So I think it is kind of like a teeter-totter in a way, is as you start to build more of these spaces that are, or more people are hanging out, you're going to have crime, but it's going to be a little less in certain spaces.
Well, didn't they say that, like, so not to toot our own horn, but Colorado is a pretty like fit state, I would say. Like they usually top some of those things of like,
Except for me.
well, there's exception to every rule. And like body mass index and like how much exercise people get per week and everything. And I think they attributed that a lot of that is there was just like, there's access to outdoor spaces. There's access to trails. There's access to the parks and things like that. And the reason it's almost like if you just have it next to you, it's just that one little extra thing that goes, all right, I should walk there anyway, or if there's a trail next to your house and it's a Saturday afternoon, you're like, all right, there's a trail a half mile from my house. I'll walk it. I'll walk the dog on that thing, as opposed to just being like, the dog can hang out in the backyard because I'm not going to drive in the car for 25 minutes and then I'm going to get to a thing and it's going to be busy and I'm going to have to find a place to park. If it's like easier for you, convenience wins over everything, right? It's why we're couch potatoes or whatever now. It's because like it's easier to get on your phone and do that kind of stuff and have that sort of low level community without any of the scary I might get punched in the face levels of community that the chaos brings. And so you just go, all right, I'm not going to do it. But the more that like you level up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you're like, all right, we're I could do it. I could go out here. It's just the more percentage of people that do that and the fitter they are and the happier they are.
I think those are some really good points, Ryan. And I think that, as you start to go back to some of the questions that you even asked before that, it's like, how do you even start like creating these environments, or if we put it on the shoulders of some of the leadership, or, we hear some of that in the chat there, and 300 days of sunshine there in Colorado is
Debbie
definitely...
does D&Ds right now. 300 days of sunshine in Colorado doesn't hurt with that.
But one of the things that I find that can help this, and this might goes back to the conversation and the point that I was terribly trying to make earlier about like Jane McGonigal, is that sometimes when you put it on just a couple people that you really can't get it right, but how do you crowdsource some of these like changes in our communities? And so it was Helsinki that did something that was really interesting, and they let some people go in and redesign some neighborhoods using Minecraft. Had you heard about this?
No.
one? And so what they essentially did was they had some folks go in and rebuild neighborhoods and then built those neighborhoods. And I like that concept of, because now we're going into some weird meta space where we're saying like the space was, or the place was online. And then we were saying, oh, how do we draw ourselves out of the online and go into real space? And now we're saying, how do we build the virtual space that becomes the now physical space? And I love the concept because it allows you to rapid prototype
just about to say that.
some really awesome spaces that you go like, oh yeah, that would absolutely work. And then get the crowdsourcing of people being like, yeah, I think we should do that. Almost like voting it in, or saying like, that makes sense, or getting the comments, because you can virtually physically walk through it.
I mean, God, it's one of those things where like AI would be amazing at this, right? Taking a whole bunch of data and doing like testing of what would traffic patterns look like with this if we did it this way. What if it did it this way? Like 1,000 different variations, and doing those tests 24 hours a day with 1,000 different, civil engineers, like looking at all of that stuff and then being like, okay, city, we came up with the 3 best ways to work with what you have now and the budget that you want to spend over the next 10 years. And here's how we want to change your city. Here's 3 options. We think these are great options. One of them has a giant carnival in the middle of the city, you know, with like every bus line going to it, you know, like it almost, you know, it's a waterfront thing or something, you know? And I feel like that's what that's sort of the cool future, I feel like, of AI is doing the thing that like, not every city gets 100 amazing PhD level civil engineers to go in and test it 1,000 different ways and figure out what the best thing is. You know what they get? Developers who have deep pockets to pay off, you know, to influence city council people to change zoning laws, you know, like that's how stuff gets done. And that's a cynical way of thinking about it. But like, if it was a little bit more egalitarian, if it was a little more based on data, and if it was a little bit more like tried and true tested through like some kind of, you know, trial, like virtual trials of things, I feel like there could be a lot better stuff, and it wouldn't have to be entirely chosen by AI. We wouldn't have to give it over to that. Like we talked about that in the alignment episode. You don't just want to necessarily give it all over to AI because who knows what the hell is going on in the background. But if like it could give us a few different options and then we could still have some agency in it, I feel like that would be such a great use of that. And I always said, the very first government official who's an AI who's going to get voted in is a civil person. Somebody that says, here's how I'm going to allocate all the funds that goes to neighborhoods and which neighborhoods get the streets paved and which ones get the lights turned on and which ones get a park. Like people want that to be more egalitarian because right now it's going to rich people.
So if you had the AIs do that, they would be like, you are the smartest city ever.
Yeah.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
Stop glazing me, OpenAI, and just tell me what the best city is.
Man, that is such a great idea for those parks. Your people are going to love
a monorail? Of course we should build a monorail. My God, it's so fun.
God, yes. it's all good. Oh man, no, this has been an amazing kind of like run around. So as we start to think about the final thoughts on this, like I think we've really traversed some interesting topics tonight, and I love this one, and I appreciate being able to like take it to this level. Is that I do think that we've lost something, you know, in the time of the walkability, and maybe even in our own lifetimes. I mean, we're in our 40s here, and I've seen some changes, and I think I've seen the changes physically, and I've seen it in the virtual space. So it's like we sit in this weird space where we can see these changes happening, and I really want to see a future where we can start to see things on both ends. You know, how do we improve some of those social structures in the physical space? Can we leverage some of the the digital space to kind of help fix some of that, or even just support some of that? So it's like the hybrid model. It's a little bit of each as we go through. I like to walk, and I wish I could walk to places where I could go sit down, have a good conversation, eat some food, have a drink, stand up, go somewhere else, and like go to another place and like then be able to get back to my house. Like that is a dream for me.
Yeah, like it could, you know, I love the European model, right? Where what if there was a bakery near my house, right? What if there was a butcher shop near my house? What if there was, you know, a place that just did, you know, soaps and shampoos and, you know, all of that stuff. And then you'd be like, okay, I could walk to those things and pick up those things when I need it, right? I need to take a walk every evening, and maybe this evening I need a loaf of bread, you know, to go down to it. Now I would say the problem with it is that is the optimistic me, or that is the side of me that I think that I want. And part of me also goes like, you know what? Convenience wins over everything. And if I had a million little shops to go to, and every time that I needed a new thing of rice, I had to go to the rice shop, I'm like, ugh, I'll just go to Target or I'll just go to Walmart and get all my shit done in 2 hours and go back. Like, and then I can veg out on this. Like, so it needs something that like pushes our lizard brain.
Your virtual thing is like, oh my goodness, your little rice monster, you got to go capture him.
Absolutely.
And so it now
would know.
It would, and it would help you through that, like, because I think that you get in a car and you go to Target because you need those things, but in the same amount of time you can go walk and have an experience that you enjoy. I don't know.
And then you're like killing two birds with one stone, because I'm probably going to go to Target and get my stuff and come back and then go on a walk with the dog, right? So I could combine those two things together
and just make life enjoyable,
and also make life enjoyable for sure. I think it's a mindset. I think it's not only a infrastructure like of that, but it's also a mindset change that you would need to have.
So moving forward, I think we're going to start to see this play out, over the next years as we go forward. We do have some of the games and things that are already happening, the Pokemon Go, and people are going there. I'm not seeing like there's a big crazy push for that. There are other games that do some similar things, not necessarily,
but they're for-profit games, right? That are just sort of aping on the same thing.
The other side of this, and I mean, not to say it's going to go one way or the other, is that we just become more entrenched in our own suburban kind of prisons, if you will, and we become more connected, and we become, I'm not sure we're all wearing VR headsets in the future, but it's like whatever the VR headset is beyond a VR headset, where it's it's the holodeck. Oh, that's a great example, where your environment around you changes.
Yeah, it's just tricking you more than it is now, right?
Yeah, and so you become walkable because you're walking on some 360 treadmill in your basement,
and you're interacting with an AI, a bunch of different AIs,
or just your friends in your own space in a virtual avatar.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't think we're going to solve this today, but one thing that I would say, if I were going to come back to the humanity of where I'm at, is that I do wish I could open a door, walk somewhere a lot easier, not worry about cars driving in front of me. And I think it's about us, being intentional to try to create those environments as best as we can. And then just to be respecting of those other places that we've created online. Great spaces to be. Yeah. But you got to know when to unplug, stop the infinite scroll when you can, and then go and have those times in the outside world as you can.
So true. It like all things, it's a balance. It's a balance of both. It's having being able to stop yourself and know what's good for you, know what makes people happy, and going out and doing some of those things and fighting against, the corporations that are trying to get you addicted to your phone, and also the infrastructure that we built in this country. Maybe 3D printing, when we start 3D printing more buildings, then we could speed up some of this infrastructure to build it in cooler, different ways. It'll be easier to build the buildings that make up this great 15-minute city.
A 15-minute 3D printed city.
There you go. It's done in 45 minutes.
Thank you so much for hanging out with us on this journey tonight. I think this has really hit some of the notes that I was hoping to discuss with you tonight.
It was a great topic, Adam. Good job, you and your son picking this topic.
That's right. And I wonder if he's gonna watch this and have any comments on there, like, oh my God, Daddy talked about this. All right, the question is, and Ryan has to have his second break. You should check that out, Ryan. Is anybody out there interested in playing any video games to close out our evening? We do have some Jackbox that we can play, but we just need to make sure that there's enough people that are willing to jump into that. Otherwise, we're going to close it up for the evening and bid you farewell. But let us know in the chat if you're interested. We'll play a few games. We probably could do some Drawful or something else. Oh, we got Debbie Does D&D that is ready for some Jackbox. So do we have anybody else? That gets us 3, but not just for me. Well, we have 3 people. I think we usually have to have 4 involved if we're going to make this work. So we will give it just a minute here as Ryan gets in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start transitioning us to the other room. I'm going to get that spun up, and we'll check in with you over there. We're going over in the other room. All right. We are over in this room. It's been a minute since we've been in this room. I don't know if check 1 2. Yeah, it feels different to be in this space. I can still hear you back over there, Ryan.
Okay.
I forgot to turn off the microphones.
Okay. Do you want me to turn them off?
Yeah, sure. We could do that. All right, folks. Let's get us on to some Jackbox tonight. I'm going to pull ourselves up online. Oh man, I didn't even mess with this back over here to make sure that everything works. Oh, look at that. We got Jackbox. Sound is there. I got this figured out. Oh my god, that is more than a half drink. You probably should not drink that. I'll take a sip of it. All right, bring that in here. What's the thoughts, folks? We got Drawful out there. Man, Drawful's a classic. We did the naughty pack. That's just too naughty. Wait, do you have the party picker on stream? What is that? Oh, on Steam. I don't know what the party picker is. No, I only have Xbox. Really quiet. Does that help at all? Did I sound? Thank you. Thanks for the feedback. Feedback is a gift, and it's something that's necessary.
All right, I poured us a little extra.
Oh my Jesus! Ryan is trying to get us like messed up.
It's not like that.
I have been very meticulously trying to fix the audio on here, so it's helpful for you to when we get feedback like that. I hate when like we do it forever and nobody tells us that you can't hear anything.
You're like, oh, we're 40 episodes in and no one could hear anything
the entire time. All right, so here we go. We got Drawful, Ryan. Okay. Is your phone ready to go? You all ready?
I have 3% battery life.
Oh my God, Ryan. Here. Why don't you I'll get you a charger.
Thank you. I was not ready for Drawful, apparently. Yeah, see, okay, Debbie does D&D. I've heard about that. The basically like picker for Jackbox games, which is crazy that they have not had that up until now. I also want to play the new Jackbox game where you it gives you a topic or something and you just add in as many different sort of ideas or topics that could go under that, and then it just has hundreds and you're just adding them to a giant list of them. I saw somebody play that on a stream the other day and I was like, oh man, that looks fun. But I think for right now that might just be a Steam only thing. Thank you.
I supply the power, the drinks,
the power,
the topics.
Oh, come on.
Just kidding, Ryan. Ryan always fills in the topics well. All right, here we go. You always give me good things to think about, too.
Good. Meek.
Oh, I like that.
Meek.
Ryan is in first.
All right. Got some people jumping in.
This is good. I'm not even at the website yet.
We played this with some people who came over to our house. And
they like it?
Always a fun time.
I have a standard picture that I usually use right now. Oh my God, we are getting people.
Amazing.
All right, give it just another second or two here.
Hello.
Oh, that's a good one, Becky.
Nice.
Oh.
A little elf.
All right.
I did a whale.
Nice. I like his little blowhole shooting out some stuff. All right.
Is that everybody?
We're jumping in. Anybody else?
3, 2,
Here we go.
1.
Anybody else? You can be in the audience.
Welcome to Drawful. 5 players. Let me quickly check the rule book. Yep, that means we'll play 2 rounds.
All right.
Everybody, follow me. All right. If you look at your devices right now, you should see a secret prompt just for you. Something kind of weird. like electric broom or some dude whose name is probably Chad. Draw a picture on your device that would have that title, and when you're done, hit send. You'll get points for each player that can correctly guess your title. So, good luck.
Shoot. I'm sorry, this one's hard. It's the hardest one I've ever had to do.
Oh.
Only 30 seconds left to finish your drawing. Maybe you should just hit send now so you don't take too long and miss your chance. I have all your drawings now, and as much as I want to keep them to myself, let's all take a look at the first one. Now, take a wild guess at what the prompt for this title could be.
Oh.
I feel like when I see the actual
Hey,
answer
I'm
for this
serious.
one, I'm gonna be
Time is
like,
up.
right.
And here are your choices. One of them is the real title.
Oh.
Actually, I did not. Everyone did good.
I feel like this was a really hard one. I mean like all of this.
Oh.
And here are your picks.
Suckers!
A seal graveyard. Yeah, boy.
Alright, good.
Oh.
Good job. Got me.
It's a plague. It's a plague. Yeah, good job, Becky. I got you all the way.
Good job. I feel like if Donovan is at the top of this list.
All right, let's do another one. Type in a convincing title now.
This is a fun one to draw.
Come on, typing time is almost up. Okay, here are your choices.
Man, this is hard. Oh, we got audience voting in.
Nice.
Thanks, audience, for joining in.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Pick anything.
Oh.
And
Ah, man. Donna's running away with it. Running away with it. Ah, God. Come on. It's a turkey with a foot fetish, of course.
It's got his little gobbler hanging there.
I almost gave him a gigantic boner, and then I was like,
Oh God. It was the hearts that did it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. If you didn't have hearts on there, I would have
Right.
been done.
exactly. Because they would have been like chicken kicking him in the face or something.
And now, this one.
Oh.
Hurry up, people. Just type something in.
Hello.
And here are your choices.
Oh man, this is good.
Oh.
Ah, I hate when you pick one and then you're like, damn it, I shouldn't have picked that one.
Hello.
God, I know. It's like,
There's some good
And
ones.
here are your picks.
yeah, I almost did one about wind.
The hair.
Yeah.
Oh, I got screwed.
Audience.
Nice. Oh, so audience gives it to.
Oh, man.
Oh yeah, boy. Honeymoon is over, right? The reason I knew it was that one because they were so mad about it.
Yeah.
And
I
the-
sort
and
of
the
took it
little
as
bow tie.
like, I sort of took it as singing almost.
But he's like, no, get
Yeah,
out.
get the-
I'm done. Done with your crap.
Enter your titles now.
Oh my god.
Mike Azul with the head in his hands.
Quick, type in anything.
Hello.
That was rough.
Here are your choices.
Ooh.
Oh my god. Good job, whoever put that one. Oh my gosh.
Hello.
Choose something.
This was a rough one.
It's tough.
I feel like
Okay,
Census
who
of
picked what?
Iceland is.
Hello.
Thanks, audience.
I think that's it. No!
Oh, good job.
That was a nice one.
Yeah. That was so specific.
It was.
Oh.
See, like, it was the eye, the mouth of that thing. Like, there was, I see. Yeah, good job, people.
Okay, hang it in second.
Put in your titles now.
Yeah, baguette.
Hello.
Come on, typing time is almost up.
5 more seconds.
It's going. It's going.
here are your choices.
There's one that makes me laugh.
Oh. Oh, come on.
Hello.
Let's see what people picked.
That was so good. Good job. I gave you credit for that.
Hello.
I'm killing it with the audience.
You
I got
are.
this,
Your
I got this
audience
audience
love.
tricked.
Come on, baby. Yeah, Pride and Prejudice. Yeah. I was like, I hope people don't think it's an American flag.
Never read it, but I am aware that it is a book. So I'm smart.
I'll take it.
Okay, it's drawing time again.
These are hard.
Yeah, man.
Shoot. How the F do you even draw that?
I literally haven't put pen to paper yet. I don't even know how to draw this.
Well, and I have my big stumpy finger that's trying to draw this damn thing.
Oh. Seconds left, y'all. Let's wrap it up. What you're doing is probably not going to be that great anyway. You're not freaking Picasso. Just wrap it up.
Ding, 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 ding.
Possibly my hardest one I've ever had to draw. It's terrible.
I got your drawings. Some of them are a
No one is
total
gonna
mess.
understand
I
mine at
love
all.
it. Let's see the first piece of art.
This is gonna be epic.
First.
Type in a title now. Oh. Okay, here are your choices.
Ooh. This one's rough.
Oh.
Shoot.
Pick an answer. And here are your picks.
Damn it. Damn it.
Good job, Heather.
Boat would have been crashed if it was Gillian's.
Olive oil didn't. She wasn't dressed like that.
She did.
Hello.
Thank you, Heather.
Sailor's Delight.
What was I supposed to do? We're
You just gotta
Sailor's
draw
Delight.
No, you're right. She was very delectable with that little string
I
bikini
get
there.
that was like literally the last 3 seconds I had to draw the girl.
All Ryan's coming up from behind.
All right,
He's
I'm
catching
still not
up.
gonna be here first though.
Up next,
Yeah, you are.
35. 30. 25. 20. 15.
hey, I'm serious. Time is up.
5. Oh.
Hello.
And here are your choices.
25. Oh. 20.
Spiral prison splooge. This is a children's. This is all ages show. For fuck's sake.
Just pick one.
5.
Hello.
And here are your picks.
Hello.
No.
Damn, I thought that was it for sure. I was in it to win it. But I'll take my bingo blackout.
All right.
Yeah,
God dang it, Becky, you're feeding Adam. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ga-ding, ga-ding.
Sorry, Grandma.
Cha-ching. 3. Ga-ding.
You got your streak though.
Oh, you dropped down to third, Adam.
Damn.
Man, you really blew it that time.
Hell yeah, I did.
Now, this drawing.
No.
35. 30. 25. 20. Oh.
I've fallen from grace, Ryan.
Oh,
Here are your
man.
choices.
25. 20.
Hello.
15.
These are tough.
I was telling you, these are rough.
Let's see what people picked.
Hello.
Yes.
Stop giving him points, folks.
You're feeding Ryan. All right, spread it out. This is good. As long as Adam doesn't get any points.
Damn it.
Yes.
The right place.
Yeah.
So many jokes I could make right now, but we gotta keep our teen rating.
See, they're worried about their rating.
Cha-ching. 3. Ga-ding.
Ooh, you're back up to second though.
I don't know how.
Enter your titles
Just gonna
now.
say I'm sorry right now. I effed it up.
35.
I don't want to influence anything, so I'm just gonna be
Okay,
quiet.
yeah, shut up.
30.
Yo, shut the hell up, bro.
25.
Oh God. It's such a terrible thing.
Oh.
Hurry up, people. Just type something in.
Hello.
And here are your choices.
25. 20.
Hello.
15.
Select an answer. Come on.
5.
Guessed mid-ad. Can't wait to see the pick.
Okay. Who picked
Sorry.
Oh man.
Hello.
Yeah.
Damn it. You were not supposed to do that. Oh, no. This is my way to get out. I knew I was gonna screw it up. Damn it! Oh!
Oh.
Oh
Al
my-
Capone's
It
skull?
was freaking Al Capone's skull.
Oh, man. How am I supposed to know that was Al Capone?
What did I do to put Al Capone in there? Tell me what you would have done
Give
different.
him syphilis.
I was trying to give him the like they were like a.
Oh.
In my mind, it was much better.
In my mind, it worked out.
That was my fault.
All right, you better
Great.
get this one.
I'm done.
And now, another drawing.
35. 30. 25. 20.
Come on, typing time is almost up.
Hello.
5.
And here are your choices.
Oh man.
25. 20.
Hello.
Choose something. And here are your picks.
Damn it.
Yes!
Ah!
3!
You
I,
just took-
I
you
almost
took it.
had something different, and I was like, this is too, it needs something straightforward.
All right, I got. Oh yeah.
All
Damn it.
right, all right, all
I
right.
only got one out of it though. You
One.
got what, a grand out of that?
Oh.
Tiny shadow.
I mean, small shadow, tiny shadow, I feel
is very
like
small.
it's pretty close.
That was good. I think you took it. I think you got it in the end right there.
Hello.
Yep.
Yay! By 3 down.
Ryan's gonna be banned from playing this game. Oh, we have a cat hand.
Oh, good job.
Oh,
good
yeah.
job. Most- I had the least liked.
That was fun, y'all.
That was good. You know what we got to do at some point is like look through all of our entire list and get some kind of like ranking system. You know, like who's won the most.
Just because you have won so
Yeah,
many.
of course. I
Oh my
want to see
god.
how far I've beaten everyone. Thank you everyone for playing. That was awesome.
That was hella fun for the
Yeah.
evening. Well, thank you so much. You know what? I was thinking we got to do just a game night of
Yeah, that
all
would be
of
fun.
Jackbox games and
That
like
would be
have
fun.
have a setup. So what's this thing that's out there?
Well, it's just like a compiler of all of your Jackbox games. But I think if you did it on, if you bought them all on Steam, then you're good to go. But I don't know if you bought them, on Xbox.
One of these nights, we're gonna let you all know. We're gonna do a whole show of it. It'll be great.
Jackbox
Party
Party
Picker.
Picker. I would say that. Like I heard that the new one is fun. Has some new fun.
There
cool
always
ones
are.
on there.
There's
Yeah.
always a fun
I don't know.
one.
I feel like they go through and you'll be like, you could skip number 8 or whatever.
Well, we're going to figure that out. Thanks for joining us tonight on Double Drop Down. It was fun to hang out with Adam and Ryan. Had a lot of great conversation tonight. I
Totally.
think that was
Amazing
a
conversation.
deep dive. We will see you next time. Until then, enjoy your evening.
Yeah. Have a
Thank
good
you.
weekend.
All right. Have a good one. See ya.
Bye.